asset and the closing and the proceeds come through to Realty Gift Fund, correct?
The answer is no. Okay. And we're going to go through this precisely, surgically throughout this class so that you understand this. But, you know, it's a great question. You have good instincts about what's going on here. The gift of a non-cash asset is two steps. First, a gift is made, and then a sale is made. The gift creates the charitable deduction, the tax benefits, and everything for the donor. And the donor is done after the first step. Now we're entitled, and we own the property, and it might take us 2 days or 2 years to sell the property, which creates the charitable funds. But the gift for the donor, the tax deduction for the donor, is based on the current appraisal of the property, has nothing to do with what we sell the property for.
Gotcha.
And that's why we can time these things. We can deal with a donor who says, I have to close in 2020. We know that it's going to take you a while to sell the property. But if we close in 2020 on the first step, that's the year in which they start taking their tax benefits, which runs, you know, the year of the gift plus 5 years if they need it.
And that's why this is so beneficial for people who are under the crunch for a 1031 tax exchange. And in December, I was talking to a lot of people about, hey, it's December 15th, 18th, 20th. When Realty Gift Fund takes title, you get your tax benefit this year, regardless of it selling in January or June of 2021. So great question, Mark. Thank you for asking. Okay, guys, it is 11:53. Unless you have a burning desire, most of these questions will be answered as we move along. So if there's a burning desire, please speak up. If not, we're going to jump right back into section 2. Bruce, I'm going to give you the reins back. I just wanted us to be able to see each other while you were chatting. Go ahead and share screen, please.
Okay, so. I think this is it, Cammie.
That's
right?
it. Yep.
Okay. Let me get all this stuff out of the way. Cammie, actually, let's see here. Why is this not moving? Oh, there we go. Okay, so here's section 2. And I want to put a little more meat on the bone for all of you to understand exactly how the charitable world works, so that you can understand how we came to the decision to create the role that we now play pretty much on a full-time basis for the nonprofit world. So and you know, you always break a complex problem down into its simplest parts, and we broke the charitable giving universe into a 3-legged stool. You have to have a donor to make a charitable gift, and you have to have a nonprofit for a charitable gift. There is a very important third leg to the stool, which we call the advisory community, and all of you who are on this call today make up a part of that advisory community. Whether you're a tax accountant or an attorney or a financial advisor or an estate planner or an insurance or a real estate broker, somehow you can get in the middle of a transaction between a donor and a nonprofit. You can do so mostly by getting yourself close to these high net worth individuals who are making asset gifts instead of cash gifts out of their wealth bucket instead of their income bucket. And it makes you a very important advisor in their world, and it does benefit greatly the nonprofit world. What we have learned when it comes to gifts of real estate, donors, when they understand the tax benefits and the convenience benefits that we'll discuss later, are eager to say, yes, I'll make that gift. This is the outcome of Russell James's work over the last 5 years. Donors of appreciated complex assets are eager in some cases to give those assets to their charitable goals. The advisory community, as they learn more, as you are today, they're also all in. The problem, the reason that real estate is 43% of America's wealth, but comprises only 2% of total charitable giving, is on the nonprofit side. And you can understand it. Real estate is, for them, too complex. There is too much risk. They don't actually have the money dedicated to their fundraising coffers to invest in real estate that they're ultimately going to take as a gift. And of course, very few fundraising teams have experts in real estate, and even those that do don't get paid for that. I met the executive director of the Nevada Community Foundation, big operation, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Jay and I flew over to Las Vegas to meet him. And this guy actually understood real estate gifts. He had accepted a gift of a subdivision that he was trying to work his way out of. So he kind of knew what he was doing, but he said, quite aptly, on Friday afternoon, I'm supposed to be making phone calls to my favorite donors, sending birthday cards, working with my staff on strategic issues around our fundraising goals. For me to be calling a broker or a painter or an electrician or what have you, a title company, is what I call mission drift. Most nonprofits who have taken gifts of real estate are happy to talk about the bad experiences that haunt them from the past, the board members who are left over from years gone by, who will remind everybody we took that gift of real estate, we should not have done it. And so the boards have been blocking the fundraising team from actually accepting gifts of real estate through their gift acceptance policies. And therefore, most nonprofits, and I'm talking about over 90%, 95%, won't even ask for a gift of real estate. The favorite saying that we've interviewed 1,000 nonprofits. The favorite saying is, we took a gift of real estate once and we will never do it again. I could tell you as many stories about those failures as I can about some of our successes. But the other thing too is that some nonprofits will say, yes, we do accept gifts of real estate. And I heard this yesterday, okay, on a phone call that I had, only on a limited basis and only with time-consuming board approval. I was talking to somebody yesterday. He serves on the board of a nonprofit. They have been trying to accept a gift of real estate for over a year. And the board keeps slowing it down. And, the donor is just going to leave and say, I'm giving it to somebody else. That's actually why I was on the phone. And so this no to most offers is what blocks the market. This is why charitable giving of real estate is 2% of total giving. So Jay and I and Peter Kane and Chase Magnuson came together and said, we can do a lot of different things to help the nonprofit world, but the best thing we can do is create a nonprofit that goes directly in between the donor world, the advisory world, and the nonprofit world, takes the risk ourselves. We take direct title. We issue the tax benefits to the donor, and we write all of the checks that need to be written, and we step in the place as a specialized nonprofit whose sole mission is to accept gifts of real estate, convert them to cash, so that we can send the net proceeds as in the form of grants to other nonprofits. And so you can see here in the graphic that we have described it, how we are interveners. We are collaborators to help the nonprofit world accept gifts of real estate. Russell James, we're going to talk about this awakening that is going on the last 3 years of the nonprofit conferences that I have attended. Russell James is the most popular speaker. He is helping the nonprofit world wake up to the importance of non-cash gifts versus cash gifts. As Cammie said, endowments will grow now it's determined at 6 times the rate if you are a nonprofit that will accept non-cash assets as gifts, as opposed to limiting only to cash, which most nonprofits do. Donors will give 3 to 7 times more to a nonprofit if they will accept a non-cash asset, because donors, high net worth donors, are asset rich and they are cash conservative. They are trying to use their asset portfolio to fulfill their charitable goals, moving assets that are too complex to hand down to their heirs, preserving their more liquid assets to hand down to their heirs as a way of simply simplifying their life. And one thing we have learned, and it was pointed out earlier today in a phone call that I had by Lori Knudsen, who's on our call with us right now, is donor lists do grow slowly. If you work for the University of Oregon and you've got 300,000 donors, it takes a graduating class to add, another 20,000 people to that potential donor list. But the University of Oregon is a good case where they are in a campaign, and they have said, we keep going back to the same people as we take our campaign from 2 billion to 3 billion. And the fastest way for us to grow from 2 billion to 3 billion has been to change the asset type that we are asking for from our donors. We don't have to add one donor to our list if we will simply change the kind of asset that we're seeking. So there is this shift going on in acceptance policies, but not to accept, but to safely ask for gifts of real estate and then collaborate with Realty Gift Fund, whose role is to help with gifts of real estate, because that is our specialty, much as like some nonprofits across America specialize in gifts of cars on behalf of the nonprofit world. That circumstances operates a little differently than the way we do, but it's the same idea, okay? So in this collaboration, the nonprofits have a role. Cammie told you all earlier, we have this phrase, do what you do best, okay? Don't get confused about what you do best. The nonprofits are great at promoting their cause. They are a good fundraiser, a good major gifts officer is a genius at cultivating the emotional connections that draw the major gift donors to that cause. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years to do this, and it's a one-on-one situation. It's not a text message or an email. It's actually one-on-one relationships between the nonprofit and the donor group, okay? That's what they do really well. We do want them to start sharing the benefits of non-cash gifts, and we want them to avoid the temptation to ever get involved in them, because it's not what they do well. We are simply saying, collaborate with Realty Gift Fund, start asking for gifts of real estate. You don't need to do much with your board, because there is no risk to be taken. You never go into title, you never sign anything, you never write a check to support the gift until it is sold. That's what Realty Gift Fund does. And that is our role. We must intervene on behalf of all the stakeholders, provide our resources, tackle the complexity, and when we are done, we pledge, we actually state in the donation agreement, here is where we are sending the money when we are done. We came across Cammie. I'll tell you what, this is just part of a startup of any type doing anything. We came across Cammie last March, she was on this quest to satisfy her need. We were on our quest to develop our business model, and actually business development was not something that we're not good at. We're actually pretty darn good at it, but we just didn't have the people capacity to grow as quickly as we were trying to do. And when we met Cammie, there was an instant sort of merger of the minds about how big the opportunity was, about how professionally we should approach it, about Cammie's potential role. She is a genius when it comes to business development, and we are really good at what we do. And so we created this alliance around the charitable giving of real estate. It is a way of blending our three-legged stool to add this fourth thing, which is Mingle to Millions. That's Cammie's business. And the outgrowth of that has been Cammie's business or new business called Real Agents of Change, which is a very, very important part of what we do, because when you all spend the time you're going to spend today learning how to do what we do, you're actually going to need to know, what do I do next? It is the most common question that we get whenever we sit down and give a presentation to a nonprofit. They go, wow, this is almost too good to be true. Send us your references to make sure it is true. But having said that, what do we do next? And that's why we've created this alliance with Cammie Baker. I want to run quickly through the benefits to each of the three-legged stools around gifts of real estate, because the more you understand these benefits, the easier it becomes for you to talk to people when you hit them in an elevator or at a party or at a social event, or a cold call, let's just say, to a high net worth individual who is not on who's on your Rolodex, but not part of your business plan. Someone you've actually never done business with before, but you would like to. These are the things that you can actually have in your lexicon to say to people when you meet with them. I am struck by the fact that every gift that we have ever taken has one common element to it, and that is convenience. And I think that goes back to what Jackie Franey's earlier comment was, that donors will give you 2 to 7 times more if you allow them to give their non-cash assets, gifts of real estate in particular, because there comes a point in time when a person says, we've used that beach house for 30 years, we have skied at that cabin for 30 years, the kids are grown, they live all over the country, they're married, everyone's employed, they got their own kids, we don't use it anymore. We would just like, if you would just take this gift from us, we will give it to you, because it's part of who we are anyway. We want to support the nonprofit world. We'll think about who the money should go to. The convenience issue is major. But let's be really clear about this. When you give an asset that is appreciated and is burdened with capital gains taxes, the gift portion completely escapes those capital gain taxes. And in the case of real estate that is given to Realty Gift Fund, the tax deduction is based not on the sale value once we get it and sell it. It's based on the current appraised value that the donor gets. So we're going to talk about this in more detail later, but the real estate people that we have on the horn today I'm sure are going to get the implication of that. As we've already said, this is a way for donors to shed complex assets from their portfolios, to protect their lifestyle, their liquid assets, to simplify transfers to the next generation, to eliminate this complex asset from their estate, and like I said before, experience the convenience. We have a saying between Jay and I, who actually day-to-day run Realty Gift Fund. We are here to make this safe We live within the white lines of the IRS. We know what those white lines look like. We live there, and we make this easy for our donors, and we make it really easy for the nonprofits who are simply introducing us to their donors and then waiting for a check to show up. But for the donors, we make a gift of a complex asset super easy. We talked a little bit about the bargain sale earlier in a Q&A. I want to make sure that we put a pin in that. A donation that is a partial cash payment from the nonprofit for any reason is called a bargain sale. And the cash that we provide to our donors can be used to pay off debt. It can be used for anything. I've listed a few things here. Return the initial investment. Importantly, this third bullet point, tailor the size of the gift to something that the donors feel comfortable with. You know, they've got $1 million asset, but they really just want to write a sizable gift to their university, $300,000 to donate to the chair of the physics department, what have you. They have a specific thing they're trying to accomplish. We can tailor the size of a gift by writing a check for the sale portion of the real estate and take the rest as the gift portion. People can use and I want also to say that the cash payment to a donor can be used to purchase replacement life insurance for the heirs who just lost the possibility of owning the empty warehouse or the 70% vacant shopping center that is about to lose its last tenant. I mean, I know the kids are disappointed that they're not going to be able to face that complexity. Instead, that their parents used some cash that we gave them to buy life insurance for their benefit should the parents pass away. Tammy?
So as you can see, this is rather impressive. Like, I'm impressed by these benefits. But one of the questions we also get is, who would possibly donate their property? So we want to address that just a little bit now, and Bruce is going to drive for me. The beauty of working with Realty Gift Fund is that we attract really altruistic people who are wanting to truly leave a legacy and do the right thing. So first of all, 80% of the people who donate real estate do it because they themselves are veterans. Their mother had breast cancer. Our example of Bob Tate being someone who wanted to help his nonprofit and maybe didn't have the cash in pocket, but had properties that had appreciated, and it did him a favor to sell or to donate, altruistic reasons. And then 20%, the other 20% do it because they are, in fact, just really savvy business owners. In other words, they see, oh boy, if I sell this, I'm going to get hit with capital gains tax. And so 80% are altruistic and 20% do it because it's just a fabulous estate planning business strategy. Now, either way, here's what you need to know. We're going to get into much more detail about who to talk to, what to say, how to say it. We'll do all that towards the end of this presentation and much more when we talk about Charitable Real Estate Specialist Mastery Membership, which is where I really get into all the details of this. But what we want you to know right now, just to kind of get this part in your mindset, what you need to know is they want to do it. This is not about selling or convincing or persuading. Like so much of our real estate career, we are taught to sell, 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 handle objections, talk them into it. That's not what we do here. These folks, we are educating and informing. They want to do it. They are grateful that you informed them. They are grateful to introduce you to other people, and they want to learn more. This is an interesting conversation, and I want to point out that's exactly why every one of us is on this video right now, is because it's an interesting conversation. So where do you find all these people? How do you start these conversations? As I said, we'll be getting into that soon, but I promise you, you already know them, and you want to know them. We will be sharing a story with you soon about a woman who was donating $25 a year and ended up donating a property. In other words, we don't know who would because we've never asked them, but we're going to teach you how to identify and how to access them. And I'd really like to get into also the benefits to the advisors. So Bruce, go ahead and pop on that screen, please.
Okay.
You know, go ahead.
It's a, you can imagine it's a little challenging for one person to drive the slideshow and the other person to narrate it, but we're doing the best we can. Again, as for the benefits to the advisory community as a whole, which includes all the people that we've talked about before, the financial advisors, the realtors, the tax professionals, the estate planners. One of the things we want everyone here to know is that this is where you can make money and make a difference at the same time. We have to hire a broker in every community in which we take a gift and sell the property. We do not quibble about what the commission rate should be. I mean, we're not fools. We were in the commercial arena for a long time, and I know what I earned when I sold a $10 million building. But I've also lived in the residential world, and I know what a residential broker makes when they sell a house. So, you know, we know this, whatever it is, that's what we pay, okay? Make money, make a difference. For real estate brokers, primarily what we're offering you here is a certification as a charitable real estate specialist, something that you can, some initials you can put behind your name in a field that is really going to distinguish you. I think I had the opportunity to get a designation as a mold specialist. I am much happier being designated as a charitable real estate specialist in the real estate world, because it elevates, you can elevate your entire brokerage and management practice to, as Cammie referred to earlier, advisory status. You're no longer, if you're sitting at the owner's kitchen table talking about their philanthropy as well as their business, you have elevated yourself to an advisory status. You're no longer a broker. Now, the best thing about this for you all is that once a donation is made and passes, the deed passes from the donor to us, and you have been the one who has referred that to us. Now we list that property with you. In other words, you have switched your listing arrangement to a seller who is not emotionally attached to the property. You'd have, I'm sure you understand what I'm saying, the number of times that I have had to work with a donor who has said, my property appraised at $3 million. Do not bring me an offer for 2.5. And I have said, I don't care what the appraisal says. The property is actually worth 2.5. And if you would accept that, we could get a deal. And if we could get multiple people involved in making an offer at 2.5, maybe we could raise that to 2.7. But as long as we hang out in the $3 million space, I'm not getting any offers. Well, Realty Gift Fund becomes the owner of a property that's been donated to them. And we don't fool around with this kind of stuff. We are unemotionally attached to the property. We want your advice. What does it take to fix it up, to optimize the value at what price? And when you do that, we can call you every morning if we want and say, how's it going? Because we're paying you a full commission. For the financial advisors and wealth managers, I don't know that there are any on the phone here today with us. For those that are, moving hard assets out of a realm for which they do not get paid as wealth managers for their clients into investment funds for which they do get paid is something that happens with the charitable giving of real estate sometimes, because one of the largest the fastest growing public charities in America is this group called the Donor Advised Funds. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But if you have a sizable event, I'll tell you this, the partial resort that we took as a gift earlier this summer was an event for the owner. He had built this business and he wanted out. And he donated a portion of the property to us, and it was valued at around $650,000. And when the entire property got sold to a buyer, which was our piece and his piece, our 3% piece and his 97% piece, we created this $610,000 benefit for the nonprofit world, and he elected to put it into a donor advised fund, which allows him over the years and over the generations to operate it like a private foundation. I'm going to make a $5,000 gift here, a $10,000 gift here. I'm done for the year. Next year, I'm going to make a $5,000 gift here and two $10,000 gifts here. I'm done for the year. And in the meanwhile, this fund, which is sitting with a certified sponsor, is growing in value because the funds are invested. This helps financial advisors and wealth managers because they can get paid to manage these funds. But for everybody, it allows them to become proactive in this space. It allows for a strengthening of relationships with existing clients, to preserve the next generation of clients, and to gain access to brand new clients. I can't think of a better tool to do all three of these things than the charitable giving of real estate, because it speaks to the whole person that your client is, okay? And as you will learn from Cammie, with her Real Agents of Change, her business development strategies, you can leverage charitable success stories in your marketing. You can learn how to make the headlines of the paper, or get interviewed by the news programs, or do all the other things that Cammie is so expert in. And in doing all of this, you continue to expand your professional and social spheres of influence. Okay, now there are obvious benefits to the nonprofit world, and this is the world that we live in right here, this little amalgamation of the types of nonprofits that we support. We support all of these types of nonprofits. For them, the most important is that they're going through an awakening and understanding the importance of accepting non-cash gifts, not necessarily to accept them, but to start asking for these gifts. In other words, do what you do best, refer the rest. It may sound odd to say, but the first bullet that I put up here as a benefit to a nonprofit is for the nonprofit to facilitate a donor's desire to make the gift the donor wants to make, which is a gift of appreciated non-cash assets, okay? The number of times that people have written to me and called me and said, can you make a $5,000 gift to us? You know, they're talking about gifts of cash. But if you have a relationship with a nonprofit and you have been pledging larger amounts of money over the years, and you finally get into a conversation about appreciated non-cash assets, now they're speaking your language if you're a donor. These are the assets you want to give away. If you do that, if you're a nonprofit and you do that, you strengthen the relationships with your donors because you're tapping into their wealth bucket, not their income bucket. A gift of cash comes out of their income bucket. A gift of real estate is coming right out of their wealth bucket. And guess what? They have a lot of assets. Most of these donors do. Russell James says that endowments will grow at 5 times the rate if you're a nonprofit who accepts non-cash gifts. That is a benefit to the nonprofit world to understand that. And Jackie Franey has said you will receive 2 to 7 times more from existing donors who benefit by giving their appreciated non-cash assets. That is a benefit to the nonprofit who is trying to figure out, how are we going to continue our fundraising when we are an event-based nonprofit who earns 80% of all of our income from the events that we do, the walkathons, the bikeathons, the bakeathons, you name it, the silent auctions where people all get the gala ball, what have you. Those don't happen this year. Those might not happen next year. And how are you going to replace that? By getting 2 to 7 times more from those donors who will give you more if you accept their non-cash assets. And again, they can expand the number of major gifts without adding one new name to their existing donor list. Nonprofits team with us because Realty Gift Fund is a nonprofit that takes the risk and does the work. It is as simple as that. We are real estate professionals with deep philanthropy experience. We understand fundraising. I've raised a lot of money for nonprofits, and we understand the importance of donor relations. I've chaired a board of an important nonprofit here in Santa Fe, and guess what? Our donors were our lifeblood. Our platform allows nonprofits to be proactive instead of reactive without actually making any shift in the acceptance policies that the board establishes, although sometimes they have to make a minor one. Why do nonprofits team with the real agents of change? Cammie, I'm going to give you this chance to talk about this one. That's you.
Yeah, well, you know, when the nonprofits are partnering with the real agents of change, the fact is, nonprofit doesn't even need to know the address of the property. And I say that because I really want nonprofits to understand how far removed they are. There is no risk for them at all to the point where they don't even need to know the address. However, when the nonprofits and the real estate agents are working with us, we really start to talk about these strategies and trainings of how to leverage it. I was just mentioning in the chat about the property that was donated to the Martin Luther King Center about 3 weeks ago in Rhode Island. When that property was sold, they received $1.7 million as a donation. But the reason you know that it wasn't a real agent of change deal is because the real estate agent and the real estate company, neither the buyer nor the seller side was mentioned. And when you're working with us, we want to really raise up and celebrate and promote the fact that you are a charitable real estate specialist, and our charitable real estate specialists get promoted in the media. Next bullet point. Now, the questions that come up: what's next? Love the idea. How do we implement this? What do we say? How do we say it? We start to talk about all of that in the Mastery membership. So whether it's emails, whether it's the video, the interviews that we do, I'm interviewing all of the people who come through the class who so choose, that want to put that video out on email and social media, and even a press release. So there's a lot of ways to implement this. There's one-on-one coaching, there's group, there's office and company campaigns. In other words, you know, to be a part of the Mastery membership is a group thing. I have clients that are one-on-one, like Ren Nix, who's creating the 100 Days, 100 Heroes campaign, and Tamisa Leiden, Michael DeShavi, all doing different one-on-one campaigns. And what I really love to do is work with the whole office, 10, 20, 50, 100 realtors, a whole company. We are in negotiations with a couple of the biggest brands that we could mention, that have tens of thousands of realtors. And there's two different ways to teach those types of offices or companies. One is to teach the concept of what we're doing. Another is to actually help them to leverage this with a campaign that they can all participate in together. So those are ways that the real agents of change can leverage this and frankly, double profitability for individual agents, offices, companies, financial service providers. All of these folks can double profitability by being seen and being heard as that specialist. So let's open it up for some questions and see, you know, like now there might be a little more stuff churning around in the head. What kind of questions do you guys have?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and just get going here. I mean, this is a fun conversation to have.
This is Jennifer Flanagan. I'm in Gallatin, Tennessee, and my apologies for joining you. I had some technical challenges, but I do have a question brought up by one of our financial advisors. If with the new tax laws, with the donation being capped at $27,000, how does a donor benefit beyond that point? And you may have already covered this. Sorry if you have.
With a donation being capped at $27,000.
A cash donation of $27,000, being able to write that off was the way they had presented it.
Oh, okay. Well, we're talking about the donation of a non-cash asset.
But when they donate the cash, when they sell the asset and then the cash comes to us, that's not considered a cash donation by them?
No.
Because it goes through you.
The donor makes the donation of the asset to Realty Gift Fund.
Okay.
Realty Gift Fund now owns that asset.
Okay.
Does whatever it has to fix it, to sell it. And then the remaining cash that's on the table is actually a gift to Realty Gift Fund.
Okay.
This happens to be our IRS approved model that we grant away 90 to 95% of the
Okay.
cash that we get to the nonprofit world.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Sure.
So as a follow-up to that question, very good question, by the way. So is there a limit to what can be written off, or is the donor able to write off dollar for dollar what the appraisal of their property comes in at?
There is a limit as to the speed at which you can write things off, and as to the amount you can write off. It is limited to 30% of your adjusted gross income. So if the gift portion of a donation of real estate is $1 million, you can write off that entire $1 million if it is under 30% of your adjusted gross income in the year of the gift. If it is not, you can carry forward that gift on the same basis against 30% of your adjusted gross income for an additional 5 years, 6 tax years total. And it is possible that you would get to the end of 6 years and you would not have been able to write off the entire amount that you got. And in that case, which has happened to us, the donor is either as interested as they can possibly be in the tax benefits, but more interested in their charitable intent. And so they get as much as they can and they don't worry about what they don't get. Or they tailor it down by making us write them a check so that they're absolutely convinced they can use that entire charitable portion against their income over a 6-year period. I hope that answers your question, Mark.
Yeah, and if I can, one other follow-up. So who ultimately, so if the donor has a specific charity that they want the funds to be allocated to, can
Yes.
they specify that Realty Gift Fund give their proceeds to that fund, or does Realty Gift Fund work with a different set of charities?
No,
Who determines where the dollars go?
we give the steering wheel to the donor. And when we write a donation agreement or a bargain sale agreement, which are the two forms of agreements that we can sign with a donor, there is a provision in that agreement that is filled out by the donor. It's blank spaces. X% is going to go here, X% is going to go there. You know, they can decide to give to 20 different charities, and they can decide precisely how much to give. It's the clause is called the advisement clause. They are advising us as to their preferences over who gets the money when we're done. And as long as we have vetted those nonprofits and they are stand-up 501c3s with a annual certificate, we will make those grants according to the donor's wishes. They decide. We did have one gift, Mark, which was a fairly substantial gift, where the donor said, I have nobody in mind. You decide. And we decided. We wrote gifts to 18 different charities that year from that one gift.
When you make that, I'm sorry, as a follow-up to that particular point, when you have that type of gift that you can decide, do you put out an RFP or do you already have that? Is that an internal decision?
It's an internal decision.
Okay.
It's an internal decision. Someone just asked, what's the annual certificate? All nonprofits have to maintain a certificate of good standing in the state in which they reside, in the state in which they're domiciled. You know, our obligation when we make grants to other nonprofits is to make sure that they are legitimate 501c3s.
In Tennessee, it's called the charitable, the letter of charitable solicitation that allows us to accept monies. It's
There you
very,
go.
yeah.
There you go.
So
Good.
Bruce, there's a question that's come up a couple of times. We answered this on the phone the other day, but I'd like to address it. It has to do with conflict of interest. So the question is from Virgil, can you be an agent and direct the funds to your own charity? And to expand upon that, can you own a property and actually have the proceeds of the property that you own given to your own nonprofit?
Virgil, it causes some problems, okay? I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it does cause problems for your charity. You become tagged by the IRS as a quote unquote significant donor of a special class. And, you know, they'll start bugging your house. I'm kidding, of course, but they will start looking at you differently and your relationship to the nonprofit. I'm sure there are circumstances in which that donation would be just outright not allowed. But I think generally speaking, you can probably do that. But again, the gift tags you as a significant donor, which carries with it responsibilities and limitations on your role with the nonprofit. And I am really not equipped to say much more than that. I'm trying to just give you a warning that that is something that you would have to ask the compliance team that is advising your nonprofit.
Now, if you're the real estate agent and you're listing a property and it's your church that's going to benefit from it, then there's no conflict of interest there. You don't
No
own
problem.
the property.
No
You're just
problem.
given. But I just want to expand on that, because since I've been in this realm for the last year and have talked to hundreds of people, I just want to be really clear. Realty Gift Fund does deals with Fidelity Charitables, the largest nonprofit in this country. They did not win over the business of the largest nonprofit of 1.3 million nonprofits by being shady and underhanded and trying to figure out ways around the system. And I say that because I have talked to people who say, well, if I do this and this, in other words, they're trying to figure out a way to get to leverage this to pull one over on the government. And that's why earlier we talked about 80% of our donors are doing this for altruistic reasons. They've owned that property legitimately for 20 years. You know, in other words, if somebody's only owned it for 3 months and they're trying to sell it to their brother, you know, we're not interested in that. Like this is all about being above board, doing the right thing, and never doing anything that would make any of us in question about our integrity, period.
I'll tell you what, just to make a fine point on that, Virgil, before I did that deal with your nonprofit, I would ask my compliance team what they think about our being involved in that. Again, we have
It could be considered self-dealing. That might be the issue.
exactly. And we play several roles, and I'm glad Cammie gave us a hug around how we are trying to comply so carefully here. The roles that we're playing, first of all, is to transact these gifts on behalf of the nonprofit world, to give them the benefits of the gift of real estate without taking any of the risk. The second role is to educate the nonprofit world in its entirety, which includes you all, about charitable giving of real estate. And the third thing is for us to learn every day where that white line is that we live inside of, to live carefully inside the IRS, because the better we do it, the closer and the faster we're going to get to $1 billion of gifts every year.
Excuse me, Bruce.
Yes.
What
Benji.
happens in a situation where you might sell a property that is above the appraised value? What happens to that additional profit? Does that go back to the donor? Does that go to realty fund, or where does that go?
Good, very good question. Every gift to the nonprofit world in excess of $5,000, every non-cash gift in excess of $5,000 requires an appraisal. The only thing we make our donors pay for is the appraisal. We absorb every closing cost that is normally the responsibility of a seller. We absorb that when we accept a gift. We believe that the donor's giving of an asset to the nonprofit world is enough, okay? No, nothing else should be asked of them. They are required to pay for the appraisal. It is their tax deduction. And to your question, Benjamin, if the property appraises for $1 million and we later sell it for $900,000, no harm, no foul, the donor gets a tax deduction of $1 million. The charitable world gets funded based on a sale of $900,000. But in your question, if we sell the property for $1.2 million, the donor is limited to his tax deduction to $1 million. And the nonprofit world gets funded based on a sale of $1.2 million, okay? Now, the one thing I can say about that is if we get to that point, if that happens, never happened to us yet, we would simply go have the donor get another appraisal. And, you know, hopefully that would take care of that, okay?
Mhm. Okay.
You have to, the appraisal has to be dated within 60 days of the gift, but it can be dated after the date of the gift. So if
Gotcha.
we sell the asset 3 months later and say, wow, we got $1.2 million, we can say to our donor, go back out and get another appraisal, because we've got some evidence that the property was worth $1.2 million. But that's a great question. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you.
Let's share a case study, Bruce. And keep in mind, everyone, the case studies are in section 5 of the workbook, if you want to see all the numbers and things like that. But we'll share a case study and then we're going to take a break and come back for section 3.
Okay. So one of my favorite stories, I usually lead off with this one. And I guess I'm going to have to break my patterns and not lead off with this one every time. So that's why I mentioned Bob Tate first. But this second story is about capacity. And this is about paying attention to people who appear not to have much capacity, but circumstances actually dictate how much capacity somebody's got. So National Jewish Health, the most important respiratory hospital in America, with one hospital in Denver, has 30 fundraisers from around the country whose work supports the mission of National Jewish Health and the foundation that supports the hospital. A fundraiser based in Washington, D.C. was tracking a donor. She was responsible for a book of about 500 donors. And she was tracking a woman who had given NJH a $25 check for 32 straight years. The one thing everyone knew about this donor is that she was loyal. Okay? The other thing that they thought they knew about her is that she had limited capacity.
Best gift.
But then one day, this donor who lived in Baltimore called the fundraiser in DC and said, I have a ski cabin that I would like to give to National Jewish Health. If they would just take it, I'll give them the whole thing. It was not a large gift. In my realm, it was not a large gift, but it did appraise for $70,000. The fundraiser said the most perfect thing. She didn't know much about real estate. She didn't even know that the National Jewish Health was back in the business of accepting gifts of real estate through its relationship with Realty Gift Fund, but she had heard our name and she suspected so. I mean, this is how new our relationship was. Her response to the donor was, thank you for your very generous offer. Let me get my real estate team on the phone. It's the only thing she said. She was done. We got on the phone, a three-way call the next day, the fundraiser, the donor, and myself. And from that point on, we just simply took over on behalf of National Jewish Health. We worked with the donor. We had a very light footprint in the donor's life. We had to have her send us a couple of documents. The property was located in Pennsylvania. It needed 13,000, we hired a local broker within 3 days of learning about the gift, okay? And we learned that it needed a bunch of work, $13,000, to make it worth $70,000. That's an important fact that the appraiser skipped over. He walked inside this house, he saw this house, he went out to the neighborhood, looked around on the internet, said everything else is worth 70 grand, this one's worth 70 grand. He neglected to go into all those other houses to find out that the kitchens had been fixed up, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, the paint was perfection. Not this one, which was why the donor wanted to make a charitable gift. I don't want to deal with this. It's 4 hours away. I don't want to fix it up. I don't want to hire, I don't want to talk to a real estate agent. If you'll take this, I will give you the whole thing. We went start to finish in about 50 days. And we wrote a grant check to National Jewish Health for $42,000 from a woman who had given them $25 a year for 32 years. One of my favorite stories.
It's a good one.
So a quick question on that, in regards to that, the great story. On the nonprofit side, how do they know if they can give or can accept non-cash gifts? Is that just something they have to change in their bylaws, or what's the process?
Well, it's Benjamin, it's often stated in the gift acceptance policies. Major nonprofits have very clear gift acceptance policies. Smaller nonprofits are a little more ambiguous about that, but they do understand what their capacity is for accepting a gift of this type or the other. If you ran a nonprofit and someone offered you $500,000 of Bitcoins, I'm just wondering how many people on this call would actually say, oh, I can do that. You know,
Right.
I couldn't,
Hmm.
I guarantee you. I mean, I'd figure it out. 500,000 is 500,000.
Right.
But most sophisticated nonprofits have gift acceptance policies that just say no. When we created our relationship with Colorado Public Radio, which is a pretty substantial NPR affiliate, they had an exact policy in there that had been written by and approved by their board. No gifts of real estate, period. They
That's
had-
the key. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's the key there is we have to go to our board that anything is an exception. We go to the board and the board approves or disapproves what we do.
And actually, that's where trouble can start for the donors. Because if the board is ambiguous, if the board is not certain, the board might say, well, gee, you know, Mr. Jones has been making substantial gifts to us over the years, and now he's offering us a 70% vacant shopping center in West suburban Chicago, which is 1,000 miles from where we all live. Are we sure we want to turn this down and irritate our favorite donor?
Mhm.
And yet the process, if the board has not created a precise yes or no, black and white response, the process can go on for months and months and months, grappling with whether or not we should take it. What are we doing about the asphalt? What are we doing about the landscaping, the roof, the mold, the glass, the signage? 70% vacant for a reason, okay?
Mhm.
And just the process of the board trying to wiggle its way into a circumstance it has no business being in
Hmm.
can irritate the donor. Instead of just saying to the donor, no.
Right.
And by the way, we say no. Just so you know, we say no 20% of the time. And we can say no in 24 hours. Hell, I can say no in an hour if I understand enough of the information about it, okay? The kindest thing to do to a donor is to say no if it is no.
I agree.
And by the way, when you mentioned that, you know, you have to go to the board to get approval, et cetera, the beauty of this is you don't, not in dealing with Realty Gift Fund, because we're not asking your nonprofit to accept real estate. We're just giving you the check when the proceeds come from the sale. What we are suggesting is that you promote to your donors and to your sphere that you can benefit from the gifts of real estate. In other words, there's a little bit of a distinction there because
Yeah,
you're
we are taking the nonprofit out of the risk cycle completely. What is important when you learn the information that you are learning today, if you are a nonprofit, what do I do next? I like what I hear. What do I do next? And to be honest, I was the board chair of an important nonprofit here in Santa Fe. There were times when we had to invest money in things that we didn't know anything about to become good at those things because we knew they would pay off at some point in time. It's just like any other business, right?
Hmm.
So that actually is what the nonprofit world has to do. And sometimes that decision is made at the board level.
And I think that's an excellent point because with the way that your presentation comes through where the nonprofit is a connector, the ask to the board is let's work with this group. And then that's all the board involvement does. And usually then you have staff who executes it. So you have the approval of the organization and then it's out of the board realm in our situation anyway.
Right. In your situation, and the point I was trying to make is that the reason that Cammie and I are teamed up together is
Mhm.
because the most common question when I make a presentation in front of 150 people, which I used to do before we were restricted, is how do we actually get started? Cammie has all these tools. She drives around with a toolbox. of how do you get started taking advantage of this new information.
It's an attractive package.
Hey,
It-
Bruce,
it-
you mentioned that Realty Gift Fund says no 20% of the time. What would drive a no from Realty Gift Fund? I think it's important for us to know that up front, because one
Yes.
thing we don't want to do is promise something and then not be able to deliver it, you know?
Right. You're going to learn later on, because we're going to go through what it is we accept and don't accept. But Mark, largely it's a question of marketability. We are not looking to build a portfolio of cats and dogs.
Yeah.
I actually, well, it's a long story, but we actually got into this business 22 years ago, trying to build a REIT of cats and dogs for the charitable world. And it was an utter failure. Okay. And we blew through a couple of $1 million traveling the country trying to figure that one out. We have learned to keep it simple. So we're not looking, 100 acres in the middle of nowhere with no infrastructure. No. $2 million property with $1.8 million in debt. No. I said, there was a no yesterday. Someone called me and said, I've got a building that I think I can get an appraisal for $1.5 million. But the best offer we've had in the last year is $300,000.
Mm.
To me, the differential between that appraisal and that actual sales price is an automatic no from me. That's like trying to defraud the IRS. And that's really the donor's problem, not mine, but I don't want to be a facilitator of that.
Yep.
The thing that really created the no was when I found out that the adjusted tax basis on the property was $1.9 million.
Hmm.
So all the owner had to do was sell the property for $300,000 to get an immediate, full-blooded, all in that year tax loss of $1.6 million. Much better than making a charitable donation, right?
Yep.
So, there's a variety of things. We'll take contaminated property, but there's a limit to what we will do. And, it's the same stuff you would say no to, Mark.
Sure. Thank
So
you.
there's one question that's come up a couple of times that I want to ask, and then we need to take our break because we're coming up on 1 p.m. The question, Bruce, is basically around in an appreciating market, a piece of property is donated, but it seems that if you were to hold it for 3-6 months, a year, that it would appreciate and be worth the holding of it. This has come up twice. So can you speak on if you would do that, why you would, why you wouldn't?
Yeah, we would do that. Part of the evaluation, I was being hyperbolic earlier, saying, we can tell you in 2 days whether or not we're going to take a property. Sometimes it actually takes us longer to understand that for good reason. And particularly if we've got a leased property, which has an upside baked into it, a 60% leased property that appraises at X, if we could accept it, and it's easy for us to hold on to it for a couple of years because we've got income coming in, and we can increase the occupancy to 90% and then sell it for more, certainly that's in everybody's best interest. And it's what we used to do in our private practice. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. We do have to be careful. I got into a discussion yesterday about a 100% empty office building that was going to take 18 months to sell, and it was going to cost us $7,000 a month to own. That's obviously a situation where if we just stuck it out, how can you not make money on that? But $7,000 a month for 18 months, when someone says 18 months, I'm thinking, really? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? Who knows? We would say, you know, we would respond the way you would.
Okay, friends, let's take a break. It is 10:01. Let's come back at 10:07 and get into the next segment, which this all flows pretty perfectly. It gets into what qualifies as a donation. See you guys in 5-6 minutes.
Bruce, can I ask you an estate planning question?
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on the chatter of the step up in basis for the estate tax and if that could be a benefit for us?
Well, changes in the tax law. I mean, the big picture answer to that is that the government has been tracking charitable donations in a chart since 1970. So we got 50 years of a growth chart to look at. And if you overlay two things on that chart, you'll notice that changes in tax policy don't actually change charitable giving that much. Changes in economic circumstances do affect charitable giving. So a downturn in 2008 affected charitable giving. The recovery in charitable giving actually occurred a lot quicker than the recovery of the economy. But changes in tax policy actually don't have that much of an effect on charitable giving. I would tell you, Chris, and you and I have talked, you know, lots before with each other. Some things are simply organic. A beneficial change in tax policy is something that we're going to sell to our donors, and we're going to get benefit out of it, right?
Sure.
An adverse change in tax policy is something that we're going to think about, and we're going to switch if we can, how a person gives to minimize the impact of that negative change in tax policy. And there are so many tools in the nonprofit world that they can choose from, depending on the circumstances. I think it's a good question.
Could we potentially do like a life estate deed where it's in the will of the donor and
Yes.
upon death, it goes to Realty Gift Fund and the proceeds go to whoever the donor directs it?
We will, well, Chris, we will accept a deed on a property that is subject to a life estate, just to answer that part of the question. Okay. Jay and I have owned life estates before with, you know, old people living in them and what have you. And we actually had one in, can't remember what market it was, but we bought and sold that property, I think 3 times. Same property. We just traded it back and forth. There are people on this phone call who know my partner, Jay Grab, really well. Jay is a magnificent trader. Jay likes to have a pocket full of chips in his pocket more than he likes to have a pocket full of silver dollars, because chips he can trade. You know, he loves trading chips. And that life estate got traded, I think, 3 times.
Wow. That's unique.
We would be happy to take a life estate.
Okay. I mean, I'm getting some feedback from some of the nonprofits I've been working with, including the junior achievement folks who you spoke
Yes,
with,
right.
about talking to their donors about just putting it in their will and doing life estate type of deeds. So, and that's getting some traction actually.
Good. And for others of you who are on the call today, a story that I'll probably, I should tell later, but we will also take an assignment of a bequest. So if a property has been deeded or has been bequeathed to a nonprofit from a deceased owner, and the nonprofit, first of all, wants to know, should we accept that bequest or should we not? We will evaluate that at no charge for the nonprofit. And then if the nonprofit says, great, we should accept that, we don't want to do it anyway, we will assign the bequest in an assignment document to Realty Gift Fund. And then we do the work and then we send the money back to the nonprofit.
Thanks, Bruce.
Hi, David Woodard.
Hello, can you hear me?
I haven't seen you for a long time.
Well, I'm still vertical. I'm one of the oldest living agents around.
It's a joy to see you again, my friend.
Well, likewise. Can you hear me okay? I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah, you're perfect.
Oh, good.
You're just
Well,
like Anderson Cooper.
Thank you. I'm enjoying this class. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to hook into the first part of it, but fortunately, it looks like it's been recorded, so I can go back and catch up on the first part of it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. I'm enjoying it, though.
Well, David, we are happy to have you and everyone on. We have 43 people on the call today, and it just goes to show there are a lot of heart-centered, visionary, generous people in the world who want to make a difference and make money. So let's get into segment number 3. I'll share my screen and do the first couple of slides, then I'll hand it off to Bruce because we are going to start talking about what does qualify a property. So hang on to your hat. Here we go with some more awesome information. And let me see if I can pin myself and okay. Oops, I went all the way back to the beginning. Shame on me. I just messed that right up. My apologies. 1 second, please. Talk amongst yourself for 30 seconds.
Let me just say, Danielle, you have been sitting quietly in the background there. I know that you are a great, great help to all the people who have taken this class already, and that you are as well to Cammie. And I look forward to sharing more of our ideas with each other. Happy that you're here.
Almost there. I hit the wrong button. My bad.
Let's see here.
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
While Cammie's doing that, hi, everybody. This is my first time to be on one of these calls. I just think that this is incredible. I can't wait to learn more. The last 3 years, I've been networking with people in the senior care industry and nonprofits and so forth. I have a television show on our local PBS, which covers most of Kansas.
Oh, wow.
So I'm really interested in figuring out how to make this all work together. I think you're raising my financial thermostat. I'm also developing a second television show called Ageless Enthusiasm. So I'll be working with Cammie to try to see what we can do to get things really rolling here in Kansas.
So is that what you do, Catherine? You're
I'm a real estate agent.
you're a real estate agent
I'm a real
who,
estate agent since 1988.
I got you.
And I work with my husband, but I decided to do a specialization in helping seniors downsize. And it turned into a seminar series that's popular at our local Botanica Gardens, which turned into a television show.
Okay, well, look, I want to say before I met Cammie, I ended up on the radio several times with financial advisor shows. I'm simply mentioning this to those of you who are established senior level real estate people. Nobody loves interviewing a real estate person more than the person who's got the mic when they're talking about the charitable giving of real estate. I mean, I'll tell you, I've been in this business for 40 years. And when I look back on it, I can tell you about the great transactions I did, some of the good buildings I built or bought or what have you. But actually the things that come most to mind are the things that I did in the nonprofit world. And that's what the broadcast world wants to hear about. So Anyway, are you back in control, Cammie?
I am. And while, as long as you're mentioning that, that's what we're doing in the Real Agents of Change. We are getting people interviewed, your local TV, radio, newspaper, all these millions of podcasts that started, all of these places need people to interview, and we're going to help you with that. So
Good.
let's jump on into section 3, details, documents, do's and don'ts. So I love how this class just progresses one thing into the next as far as what we need to know next, as we've been talking about what qualifies. So what does qualify a property? These are some examples of what qualifies a gift of real estate. And to just give the big bird's eye view, really, it's anything that is not a timeshare. It needs to have equity, because the equity is what the gift is to the nonprofit, and it needs to be marketable. But to break it down to a bit microscopic, look, if it's a residential property, even people's primary homes, we just really want to expand the thinking. You know, it could be someone with one property. It doesn't have to be people with a ton of different properties. It could be that primary home, could be that second home we talk about, the lake house, the beach house that the family doesn't use anymore. It could be an investment property and they're tired of tenants, trash, and toilets, right? Commercial, of course it can be commercial. As a matter of fact, the bigger the commercial, the better, because we want the nonprofits to really get funded. And because the average amount of a donation is $550,000, some places says average amount is $700,000. In other words, there's a lot of donations that come in the millions, and a lot of the times it comes from commercial, multifamily, office buildings, strip malls, storage facilities, restaurants, hospitality. You know, one of the great things about Realty Gift Fund being so educated in the commercial realm is that in some of the stories you'll hear today, you know, if it's an office building that's 70% vacant, they may be able to do something about that and raise the value of the property before it is sold. They really know what to do to optimize the value of these properties. Land. Now, as we mentioned, if it's 100 acres out in the middle of nowhere with no access, well, see, that's not marketable. So we're going to talk a lot about what is marketable and what can make a property that currently is not marketable, make it marketable. Because, you know, in real estate, it's location, 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 and price, price, price. So farms, ranches, no timeshares. This just a big no thank you. What qualifies? Length of ownership. You need to have owned it for at least a year. And Bruce can get into the nuances of that. But just as a rule of thumb, you know, type of ownership, he'll get into some more details about that in the documents. Let's talk for just a minute about marketability. So for example, if that piece of property, let's say it appraises at $1 million and Bob's the owner and Bob wants $1 million, he is not coming off $1 million. That's what he wants for it because of all of his tax implications, etc. But then when he speaks to Realty Gift Fund and he says, well, you know, if I could get the $1 million write-off, yeah, and I could get 500 cash out of it, sure. So now that we list it with one of our real agents of change, and that agent says, well, it appraises at $1 million, but if we put it at 875, we could sell it immediately. Well, see, now you're working with a savvy seller, which is Realty Gift Fund. They understand market, and they will list it at 875. So now that property that was not marketable before because the price was just not going to happen, now that it's 875, it is marketable. Or now that it has a new roof that Realty Gift Fund put on. In other words, just by shifting the ownership and the mindset and the circumstances can make that one property now marketable. So, you know, the underlying tax circumstances, when you folks are talking to people who own property, we have a form that we're going to show you in a little bit that gives you the opportunity to grab the real basic things that we would need to make that evaluation. As Bruce said, within an hour, sometimes they can tell if they would take the donation or not. But the very first thing at the top of that page is all about the property donor's intention. why do they want to consider this option of donation? So their underlying tax circumstances are going to have a lot to do with that, whether or not the property is highly raised in value, et cetera. So minimum equity of 250 is a nice rule of thumb. However, you heard in our story earlier that one property was only a $43,000 equity. However, that's way better than a $50 raffle ticket times 100. So, you know, it's not something that we have to have, but it makes sense to shoot for 250,000 as equity. And the maximum size is unlimited. So a lot of the questions that have come up about mortgages being paid off and can the owner get cash, et cetera, you know, if the property is appraised at 10 million and it has an $8 million mortgage on it, and Realty Gift Fund can consult with the real agent of change, and they know that, yes, absolutely, we could get 9.5 million for it, then yeah, they can pay off that mortgage, take title, and get over $1 million into the hands of the nonprofit world. So a lot of variables, but just kind of some rules of thumb. And now we're going to talk about what documents are required, and I'll hand that over to Realty Gift Fund. Would you like for me to stop sharing and you take control?
Let's try that. See if we can make a fast
Okay, all you got to do is share.
share. And okay, so we did it pretty easily. Nicely done. The slide we were looking at was, hang on a second. There we go. That's the slide we were looking at. So what documents are required? This is what we're trying to say over and over again, that we're trying to make this safe for the donors, and we're trying to make it easy for the donors. The first thing that we usually do when we talk to a donor is we create a net gift estimate. Anybody who's been involved in the real estate business for more than a day realizes that when you get something under contract, there is usually some kind of disclosure around the expenses that are going to be involved in going through the transaction process, going to the closing, and therefore it makes it easier for both a buyer and a seller to calculate either how much money they have to come up with or how much money am I going to end up with at the end. Our net gift estimate does the same thing. We create it after the first conversation with the donor when we decide that we know, or when we feel like we know we are going to accept that gift. It's guidance for them and for us. I'll explain it more to you later. There is a donation agreement, and if there is a partial cash payment involved, there is a bargain sale agreement. They pretty much say the same thing, but the bargain sale agreement stipulates a cash payment to the donor and has a few other provisions that reflect back on that cash payment. Both the donation agreement, by the way, and the bargain sale agreement look a lot, like I said, like real estate agreements, but they have all the provisions that are required to make a charitable gift. We do make our donors sign a disclosure agreement, which is mostly about the fact that they need to get an appraisal. We want them to understand they must get an appraisal, that they are going to pay for the appraisal, that we will not allow any fraud in the appraisal, that if we feel like there is, that we will back out of the deal, and that the appraiser who has been selected must sign an IRS form, which is called an 8283, stipulating to the appraiser's certification of value of that property. That form also has to be signed by the donor, and it has to be signed by Realty Gift Fund. This is that form right here, okay? And so the disclosure agreement says, these are the things that you are going to sign, and if Realty Gift Fund accepts a donation from you, has signed and turned in to the IRS Form 8283, and sells the property within 3 years of that donation date, then we have to fill out another form saying this is what we sold it for. If we go beyond 3 years, we don't have to. The IRS is trying to protect against fraud in the appraisal, because that's the basis on which the tax deduction is offered. Okay. Importantly, the donation agreement, the bargain sale agreement, and the donation disclosure are Realty Gift Fund documents. We created them. The two forms are IRS documents. They created them. When it comes to a listing agreement to sell a property that we have accepted as a donation, and then subsequently a purchase and sale agreement to sell the property, those are your forms from your brokerage company, approved by your state. We sign those documents and all the disclosures that are required in your state that come along with all of that. So I want to take a close look, if you don't mind, at what we mean by this net gift estimate. This is exactly the form that you would receive from us if we had a call and we agreed on the phone call, and maybe we took an extra day and looked up the property and said, yeah, you know, this makes sense. And you have described it without actually knowing. You have said, I think it's worth $1 million too. I think that's what I can get an appraisal for. I do know I have a mortgage and I think it's around $300,000. I don't need any other cash, but on the basis of what I've just told you, I would like to make a gift of the property. So we plug in an assumption. $1.2 million is the appraisal. The partial cash payment, $300,000, is intended to pay off the donor's note. And the donor's gift portion is going to be what the difference is. In other words, $900,000. We then have to conclude the first step, which is to take the donation of the property. There is some due diligence. We need to go through a title company, or if it's an attorney state, we nonetheless have closing fees. And there can be, most often there is not a commission involved in the donation step, but there are closing costs and there are prorations. And if you're in the latter part of the year, the property tax proration can be a significant number that we absorb on behalf of the donor. Then once we own the property, there can be holding costs, there can be repairs. And in this example, we have made a partial cash payment to pay off debt of $300,000, other costs of $5,000. We have total donation costs of $305,000. Now we sell the property. Second step. What we're trying to do is create the charitable funds. And we sell the property for $1.2 million, which is 100% of the appraisal. We've actually gotten to a point where we've said, yes, the property was worth $1.2 million. Yes, the amount of the loan was in fact $300,000. And yes, we have spent all this money on getting ourselves to the closing table. And so when we sell the property, the first thing we do is reimburse ourselves for the money that we already have in it. And then, of course, at the closing table, we have to pay the real estate commission, the closing costs, prorations again to sell the property. And in this case, $79,000, which leaves net proceeds of $816,000. Now, I've said to you that in the donation agreement, we allow our donor to advise where the monies might go when we are done. In that same donation agreement, we are stipulating here is the share of the net proceeds that Realty Gift Fund is going to retain for its own operations. And so our net gift estimate stipulates what this is right up front. And we say of the $816,000, the grants to other nonprofits that you advise us for is $775. We're going to keep 5%, $41,000. That's what it looks like. This is a really important document because this trails us all the way through the process. If the appraisal comes back and it's different, if the lender says the mortgage is not 300 but something else, and if all the costs that we incur are our best estimate but they're actually different in the end, we track actual and we produce an actual net gift estimate at the very end once all of the settlement statements have been signed, so that we and the donor can see how well we did, speculating on how we would end up and how we actually did end up. The donation agreement, of course, is like a real estate agreement, but in the recitals, we do state the donor's intention for charitable intent and our acceptance of the property as a donation subject to the terms of the agreement. And in the provisions, the important provisions that a donor is paying attention to is who's paying the closing costs. The answer is normally we pay all of it. Yes, there must be a qualified appraisal if you intend to claim a charitable deduction. The representations clause in an agreement restates the donor's charitable intent. And then we get to a clause that says Realty Gift Fund will be reimbursed any nickel that we have invested in the property upon sale of the property. We have a clause where the donor gets to advise where the gift is going to be shared and how much of that gift is going to be retained by Realty Gift Fund and how much is going to be shared. And then, of course, as you can imagine, we are never giving tax advice, and we force our donors to go out and get independent tax advice. In a bargain sale agreement, the only difference between the bargain sale agreement and the donation agreement is the stipulation of the partial cash payment, which we call the purchase price. In the disclosure, we've already talked about this. An appraisal is required. There's going to be an 8283 that the appraiser must sign. There's fraud protection, and we do alert the donor what happens if we sell the property within 3 years. There's going to be another form. Here is an actual 8283 IRS form. We won't go into it. The second page of the 8283 is the part that you fill out for gifts of real estate. It does actually ask you what is the, when did you buy the property? What's the adjusted tax basis? How much are you claiming? If you get an appraisal for $1 million, you do not have to claim $1 million as your charitable deduction. You can claim 950, 900. If the property sells for, if we do all of our work and we say, look, Mr. Donor, the best we can do is get $700,000 for this property, and that's what we're going to sell it for, and it's within this 3-year period. Maybe the donor says, okay, you did the best you could. We got the appraisal. He did the best he could. We're going to claim something a little less than the $1 million to get us in an acceptable range of the amount that you've been able to sell the property for. Donor's decision. Here's what the 8282 looks like. And then again, your state paperwork drives the listing agreement, the purchase and sale agreement, and all of the other disclosures that are related to selling a property. As a specialist, when you're talking to a donor, here's what we focus on. We focus on their unique goals. So we have a little form that we use, and you can use the same one or you can use your common sense. But we want to know in the top section, and it's what we focus on right away. Thanks for your generosity. What are your goals? Well, this piece of property, we're just not using it anymore. And before it gets any worse in the condition that it's in, we would like to liquidate it from our portfolio, and we're going to do so by making a gift. Okay, that tells us something. Or we have somebody who says, look, I've got just a bundle of tax obligations on this property, and I would like to not waste my money spending it on the government. I'd rather spend my money on the nonprofit world. That tells us something. You know, these are just common sense things. And then, of course, we're collecting a little bit of information about the property. And when we do, we're collecting everyone's best guess. What is the approximate value? What is the approximate debt? Is it occupied? What is the approximate net income? What are the approximate expenses? Have you ever listed the property before? How long? Get any offers? Tell us about that. We're just trying to figure out our sense of whether this property has any problem or not, right? The same way you would. So, Cammie, that's the end of that section. And I would be thrilled to take anybody's questions if that's appropriate.
Yeah, for sure. So just stop sharing. There you go. All right, everybody. I'm sure you've got some questions now. Let's hear them.
You see who else is on this call. Wow. 64 people.
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
If someone has a piece of property they've been wanting to sell and it hasn't been selling, are your advisors able to demonstrate maybe the difference between if they were to donate that property, consider donating it rather than selling it if that wasn't on their mind to begin with? Is that a viable approach?
Well, let me just tell everyone who is on this call, and whoever is not muted, please mute yourself because we can hear your other call. But Seema is in charge of a nonprofit, and so she asked this good question. I do want to tell you all that you can see that we're trying to do quick valuations on some properties that can be actually quite complex. And we're trying to get to the decision as to whether or not these properties are marketable as quickly as we possibly can and make a representation to the donor and to the nonprofit that we can do what we say we can do. That is a long way of saying how much we actually need the real estate specialists who are in this call today. Because if I'm dealing with a property in St. Louis or Wichita or someplace that I don't live, and I actually can't get to or I refuse to go to, but you live in that neck of the woods, I am really, really relying on our partnership for you to tell me, here's what it would be worth if you would do this. I can already tell you what the next story is I'm gonna say to you, okay? I'm gonna share with you. And so it's a way of answering Seema's question is, I think what I'm answering is the donor has an appraisal and has an expectation based on that appraisal. I'm working with the donor world who lives on the street and knows actually a little bit, perhaps more, about what a property is worth. And my representations and my expectations are based on that relationship. And it often is different. The donor says it's $1 million. The broker and I say, no, it's 925. We can hang out for $1 million. It may take us a year. And in that time, the market may go south on us. But if we just admit that it's worth 925 today, and we do our best to get 3 or 4 people interested at that value, and maybe bump someone up to 950? Isn't that a good outcome? Those are the decisions we're making, and we're working with you all to get that done. And we're paying you to do it for us. Any other questions?
Is the 5% retained by the Realty Gift Fund always 5% in every transaction?
No, it can range from, you know, if you bring me a $60 million deal, it could be a point. We do have, and the reason that we said earlier when Cammie was going through what qualifies, and we said the minimum equity was 250, we do have a minimum of $20,000 per transaction. And we would like for our share of the net proceeds not to exceed 10%. That's the story we like to tell the nonprofit world, because we're not the only one in the space. There are very few who do what we do. One of them keeps 90% and gives away to the nonprofit world 10. And another one keeps 30 to 40% and gives away, you know, whatever the difference is there. We love our story. We keep up to 10% and we give away the rest to the nonprofit world. Minimum of 20 grand. So, you know, in the case of the $70,000 ski cabin we talked about before, we took 20% of that gift. Okay. Our average is around 10.
Got it. That's great. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else?
You said, you know what, oh, go ahead, Catherine.
I'm just curious, like how many organizations like yours are out there? Is it just a handful like that?
It is a handful, and I really can't answer the question, but although I am made aware from time to time of, you know, somebody else who is doing that. I mean, the most famous one, I think, is Cars for Kids. I'm sure everyone's heard their national jingle. They're in the business of donating cars. They also do real estate. They only give the money to one nonprofit. It is their own nonprofit. They're raising money for their own nonprofit. And that actually isn't clear when you are listening to their you know, cute jingle. But, you know, I tell you, there's probably a half a dozen. There's a handful who do what we do. We are, you know, we're in this, I would just tell you this, we're serious people. We've teamed up with Cammie because we found a serious glitch, flaw in our business model that she fills. We're after $1 billion a year, not 100,000. We think we're doing this class. Cammie and I designed this class so that we could attract people of your caliber to the effort. And it's by doing all of these things that I think is an expression and a representation of the seriousness by which we're pursuing this.
And let me piggyback on that answer, because a year ago, when I was on the hunt looking for a specialized nonprofit, I learned just enough about charitable real estate to know why none of us had ever heard of it, to know why property donors are wanting to donate, and to know that I needed a specialized 501c3. And so I did the research. And to Bruce's point, there are others, but every one of them that I interviewed, you know, one didn't care anything about the real estate agents. Whatever you got listing the property, that was your problem. One of them would keep 30% of every deal. One of them was all about their charity and talking to me about how we were going to help these kids in Africa. And that's great. But I wanted everyone to pick their own nonprofit for the money to go to. So there's all these little nuances, and everything considered, this is just the perfect combination of what I knew that the real agents of change would need. All right. Well, it is 1:41. So might I suggest, I don't know, do we want to take a break, Bruce? Because the next one is really getting in the weeds. It's a short segment. It's all about taxes and numbers. Let's take a quick 5-minute break. When you come back, know that we're going to get into some deep weeds, but I want to also answer Seema's question about, if this property's been on the market a long time, can you give them a comparison? Yeah, that's what we do every time. Bruce, as we say, do what you do best, refer the rest. So we don't want you to get bogged down in trying to learn the tax implications and all the numbers and how to do all this. We just want to show you why it's so complicated and the average nonprofit won't do it, how smart Bruce is that he can do it. And for those analytics out there who need to know how it goes down, that's what the next segment is about, just for your knowledge, not so that you have to learn it and go do it in your marketplace. So let's take a 5-minute break. 1:47, we'll come back and we'll finish up with this really powerful segment.
Wow. Who wants to raise their hand while we're waiting for the group to reassemble? Good Lord.
I'll raise my hand. I love this concept because I think it takes a lot of the risk off the table for both the donors and the charity. I almost look at it as like a donor advised fund where you give the asset to the charity or to the donor advised fund, and then it's doled out to, as grants to the organizations.
Right. There is a comparison there.
But I'm involved with a lot of nonprofits, and most of the time they're really concerned about receiving property because of the maintenance costs and the carry costs with taxes and other things. So this really takes a lot of that off the table, and just makes the process streamlined and allows someone else to really do, the due diligence as well as all the other mechanics of selling the property. So this is amazing. I really like it.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say it. I mean, it took a while for us to figure out what the right solution was. Because I've talked to, I'll just say who it was. It's the Denver Foundation, which is probably the largest community foundation in the Denver market. There's 4 or 5 of them. And, they said, we take gifts of real estate. I asked them, that was the first time I met them. I asked them the question, do you accept gifts of real estate? They go, yeah. After a little while, I circled back and I said, how many did you take last year? And they said, 1. I said, well, how many did you take in the last 3 years? 1. I said, okay, so you're really not taking gifts of real estate. But the way they were doing it is that they were hiring the kind of brokers that we have on this Zoom call right now. Really high qualified real estate brokers in commercial and residential real estate to advise them. Here's what its value should be. Here's what we think you should spend fixing it up. They were doing all the right things, but it required the Denver Foundation to actually go into title, take the risk, spend the money, their money, and, just take all of the risk for the return. Sometimes that was worth their while, but you can tell 1 gift in 3 years, obviously not enough. So Dom, what we're trying to do is say, hey, look, just get out of the way, bring your donors to us. We will treat them respectfully. No one knows better about the value of a donor relation than Realty Gift Fund. We'll preserve that relationship for you. Otherwise, you have no risk. Bring your donors to us and we'll get it done, and you'll get the benefit of it. So
I think another thing to think about too is, I'm a wealth planner, that if you have inherited property and there's a taxable estate, you have a large home that's worth a lot of money, you can do a calculation of how much money goes to charity to offset the taxes. Right. So it can be something where you say, okay, it's a $2 million property. If I give 500,000, there's this deduction to the state. I can get the 1.5, but also reduce to 40% tax on the estate. So there's a lot of planning that can go along with this, that can really help benefit people, not only the charities, but people that are selling the property as well as people that are inheriting property. So there's a lot. I really think it's a great concept.
When you stop and think, you escape the capital gain taxes on the gift portion, and you get to then take that same amount and apply it as a charitable deduction against your adjusted gross income. 2 different tax buckets, right? And you get to carry that forward for 6 years if you need to. It can actually allow you, I think, as a wealth planner, to say, you do have some income events coming up for some reason or another. We can shelter them in advance by making a gift of an asset that you don't use anymore, that it's actually costing you money to own. And you can take the gift and carry it forward into the years where you're actually going to experience more adjusted gross income or something like that. It does become, for the really smart wealth manager, an interesting tool.
Too, with the new rules with the IRA, the inherited IRAs, where you have to take them out within 10 years. If you have those deductions that you can carry forward for 5 more years, you can take more of those distributions out within the first 5 years after the death of a spouse or family
Very-
member and offset it with the charitable deductions.
Perfect,
So
perfect. Yeah, I like that.
Dom is a guest of Chris L. I just want to thank Chris for bringing someone to the table that's so eloquent in his thinking. And as we jump into the next section, I want to make a comment on Catherine has a bit of a question or comment. She says, you know, I just wonder how long it's going to take to be able to really speak about this intelligently. And, you know, it's just like anything else. It's kind of like right now, we're all taking a look at the gym. Like we're showing you all the equipment and how the gym equipment works. And here's the gym, and you can come here and you can play anytime. But it's those who sign up for the spin class and those who hire a personal trainer, they're the ones that really know what equipment to use and how to use it and who to talk to and what to say. So it's just a matter of how involved you get. It's a really simple conversation. And please keep in mind, I told you about me not really grasping the bargain sale. I threw that out there because I've been doing this for over a year now and I'm still learning things. And Bruce will tell you, for the first 3 months of me meeting him, I could not say Realty Gift Fund and charitable gifting of real estate in the same sentence without just fumbling on my words. And realty gifting of funding, real estate funds of gifts, like I couldn't even say it right. So it's just a matter of staying in the conversation and really, and I can help you with that. Okay, Bruce, if you want to share screen, let's do this really intense, but really, really impactful segment of the program.
Okay. There we go. Okay. Understanding the taxes and the numbers. I mean, I know we've got numbers people in this Zoom room. I'm a numbers guy, to be honest with you. I like this part of it. We have perfected this part of it. I think you're gonna understand it when I go through it with you. And it might be something that you forget by the time, you know, you wake up tomorrow morning, but you're not gonna forget the impact that I think this message has on you about the power of the nonprofit world. I just want you to know that since we're going to talk about taxes, I am not a tax person. These are presented as ideas. I have run them by my tax guy. He says they're accurate, but I'm taking a very specific example. And when we deal with our donors, we always say to them, only a qualified and independent tax professional can accurately determine the actual outcome for your set of circumstances. But we have said before, but just to say it again, the complete gift cycle requires 2 steps. First, the donation, and then the sale. The donation creates the charitable gift that the donor benefits from by way of escaping capital gains taxes and taking a tax deduction. So when we work with a donor on the first step, we are trying to understand the donor's goals, create a donation agreement that aligns with those goals. We have to conduct the due diligence. We accept the donation, we go into title, and we deliver the cash if necessary and all the tax benefits to the donors, and the donors are done. That is the first step. Now we are in title, we own the property. Step 2 is to manage the title and financial risk until the asset is sold. We're trying to maximize the result of the money we spend and minimize the wasteful spending of money on things that are not necessary. We're trying to position the property for sale, and we're using your advice to get us there. Then we sell the property, and then we grant the bulk of the net proceeds to other nonprofits. The first step creates the charitable gift. The second step creates the charitable funds. Let's take a look at somebody who is an individual owner selling a commercial business, a commercial piece of property. And let's make up some numbers so that we can walk through some comparison scenarios. This is an owner who invested $800,000 in the original purchase of, let's say, a warehouse. Not everything is depreciable in a piece of real estate. The land is not. So we're taking out a certain amount for the land allocation. And then if the donor spends any more money, like in the initial part of the ownership to repair the roof, or not repair the roof, but replace the roof, something that is a capital contribution that can be depreciated. In this case, we said $22,000. That means that the owner has a depreciable asset with a value of $702,000. On a commercial property, depreciation straight line is taken over 39 years, which means $18,000 a year. And this particular owner has owned the property for 10 years. In other words, total depreciation of $180,000, which is subtracted from the original net depreciable asset value to derive what today's adjusted tax basis is, which is an important thing to know. You can work your way through the 39 years of owning a property and get to where your adjusted tax basis is zero, which means everything you sell the property for is taxable. If you go out and borrow money against it and you have to sell the property someday for just to pay off the note, the whole thing is taxable. Okay, that's known in the real estate world as a small disaster. Okay. The two numbers to pay attention to here are the two numbers in turquoise. Then we have this owner's tax situation. He's being charged against ordinary income at the maximum Fed rate of 37%. His state rate is 5%. His total rate is 42%. The taxes on the capital gain portion of the sale of a building is 20% plus the state rate plus the Obama or the Affordable Care Act rate. And there is a separate tax rate against the recapture of depreciation, which totals up 33.8%. These five numbers that are in turquoise are numbers that are going to be meaningful in the next slide, comparing an outright sale to an outright gift and to a blend of the two, which is a bargain sale. We're going to look at all three. So the outright donation of an asset, and we're going to assume in all cases that we have an appraisal of $1.2 million, means that the donor is giving away the entire asset equity of the building. There is no debt on the property, and the donor is not asking for any cash. This is opposed to a bargain sale where for some reason the donor needs $300,000 as a cash payment against the $1.2 million appraisal, meaning that the charitable gift is going to be the difference between the two, $900,000. In a conventional sale, for those of you who are brokers on this program, someone comes to you and says, Bob, you know I own this auto dealership, blah, 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 I have for years and now it's empty and I need to sell it and I want to sell it and I think it's worth, I've got a loan on it for X number of dollars and I think it's worth $2.5 million. Go get it, $2 million. What do you think it's worth? And you come back and you've done your broker opinion of value and you say, no, I actually think it's worth $2.7 million. And the two of you determine what you're going to list the property for in most cases, okay? Let's take a look at what a conventional sale, how it nets out. if the property is actually worth $1.2 million and sells for $1.2 million. The first thing we have are closing costs, your commission, the title fees, the proration of taxes, of other expenses and income, recording fees, etc. In this case, 7%, net proceeds, $1,116,000. We need to know how much this seller is paying in taxes on $1,116,000. If you remember back to our earlier slide, the adjusted tax basis currently is $522,000. In other words, that's what he still has invested in the property, and this seller is allowed to deduct that amount from the net sales income, meaning that he has an actual total gain of $594,000. That is the part that is taxed. It is taxed at two different rates. How much did he take in depreciation over the 10 years? And whatever is left over is taxed at the capital gain rate. Those two numbers, the 414 and the 180, add up to 594. We apply two different tax rates to those numbers, as we determined in the earlier slide, and therefore we have taxes of $180,000 due by the seller when he pays his taxes on this building in sort of a generic sense. And his after-tax proceeds are $936,000. Not a bad outcome. Let me tell you what happens in the charitable world. If this donor were to have gone to a nonprofit and said, I would like to donate my asset to you. My car dealer is trying to call me. He's fixing my car. If he had gone to a nonprofit and said, I'd like to donate this asset to you, most likely the nonprofit would say, thank you, Mr. Jones, for making that wonderful offer. Please go sell your property, pay your taxes, and make a gift of the rest of what you have left over. That actually happens a lot. And guess what? Donors actually sometimes do that. They just say they understand that it's not something that the nonprofit can or should be dealing with, and that it's reasonable for the donor to go sell the property, pay their taxes, and make a charitable donation. So let's just say that's what happens here. We're having a gift of the after-tax proceeds. The 936 is the charitable gift. What's the outcome for everybody? Well, there has been no partial cash payment made to the donor in this case, outright sale, but there is a cash value to the donor for the $936,000, which is his tax rate on an ordinary income basis, which we previously determined was 42%. $936,000 times 42%. This donor is going to save $393,000 in cash on making this donation, and that is the cash benefit to the donor. The cash benefit to the nonprofit is that they get $936,000. And if you add those two, those are the charitable funds. If you add those together, a property worth $1.2 million has created cash benefits to the donor and the nonprofit of $1,329,000. In other words, what we call charitable leverage of 10%. I think that's a pretty interesting outcome, if you want to know the truth. You know, in fact, the government got their due, so like everybody's really happy, right? Let's compare this to an outright gift of a property, which does, by the way, require an appraisal. And so we have a current appraisal of $1.2 million. We have a donation to a qualified nonprofit like Realty Gift Fund with no cash payment necessary. And so the gift, the charitable gift, is $1.2 million. Remember in the earlier part, the earlier slide, the charitable gift was $936,000. We're going to have a different outcome here. We have the same closing costs, same property, same net result, and the gift part is not taxable. So when we look at the tax outcome, we're looking at a bunch of goose eggs times the tax rate, no taxes paid by the donor on this transaction, and therefore the after-tax cash benefits, once again, no partial cash payment made to the donor by Realty Gift Fund, but the cash value of his tax deduction, his tax benefit, is now $1.2 million times his ordinary income tax rate, or $504,000. So the net cash benefit to the donor is $504,000. The net cash benefit to the nonprofit is the gift of $1.2 million less the closing costs, or $1,116,000. Those are the charitable funds. The total cash benefit, $1,620,000 on a property that was worth $1.2 million. We've created 35% more cash for the donor and the nonprofit world together than the property was actually sold for. And guys, I'm telling you, this is why I get up every day with a smile on my face, because I know I can create outcomes like this. Now, in the case of a bargain sale, which is part sale and part gift, as you might imagine, because the gift portion is not taxable, the partial cash payment portion is taxable. It's going to create a result that is somewhat in between the first two slides we just looked at. $300,000 is 25% of the total appraised value, and therefore the IRS says that when you get to selling the property, you've paid your closing costs, the $300,000 is taxable. And it is so on the basis of an allocation of 25% of the tax basis from the very first setup worksheet that we did, that $522,000 adjusted tax basis. 25% of that is $130,500. And the depreciation recapture, the depreciation was $180,000. 25% of that is $45,000. This is how you calculate the taxes on a bargain sale. The partial cash payment was 25% of the total appraisal, and therefore there is an allocation of taxes of 25% against this payment, which is $51,000 in taxes. So just real quickly, we're going to look at the outcome here. There was a cash payment made by Realty Gift Fund of $300,000, on which the donor paid $51,000 in taxes, $249,000 net. There was a $900,000 gift made by the real estate owner times his ordinary income tax rate, $378,000 cash benefit to the donor, for a total of $627,000 to the donor. And the nonprofit got a $900,000 gift, but had to pay all of the closing costs, $816,000, the total $1,443,000, charitable leverage 20%. Y'all, I'm happy to take your questions on this, but again, it is the magnificent part of taking a non-cash appreciated asset burdened with taxes, converting it into a charitable gift, and seeing what the outcome can possibly be. I am going to stop sharing. Does anyone have any questions about any of that?
I've got one. What are the effects or ways of talking someone out of doing a 1031 into doing a charitable gift?
Great, David. That's a super good question, because I know that you're, with all of your experience, you've been involved in a lot of 1031s, and you know that we'd have as well. It's an experience we share, and even those of us who have done them on our own account have gotten to the point where we say, when do we get off this train? Because the one thing that a serial 1031 exchanger does is he builds up the taxable portion of the portfolio, because he's, usually trading up and dragging a smaller and smaller portion of adjusted tax basis with him. And the only way to get off that train is to either die and get a stepped up in basis for your kids, which is honorable. There's nothing wrong with that. Or more and more in your lifetime, use an asset like that for a smart charitable gift, where you just say, I'm walking away from all of those taxes, or I'm willing to pay a certain portion of those taxes, and I will claim and ask for a cash payment to the extent that I'm willing to pay taxes. But for the most part, I'm using this asset smartly to, at the end of my career, use my wealth, not my income, to fulfill my charitable strategies and get off of the 1031 train. That's how I would answer you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would also add to simply inform, let that person make their own choice. Everybody's situation is so different. And for some people to just know that they can benefit their favorite nonprofit, that's all it's going to take. We talk about all the time how we're not convincing or persuading or pushing. We're simply informing and educating and giving people the option that they just flat out didn't know they had.
Right. Right. Who else? Any question? If not, Cammie, let me tell one more story. Okay. We have some people on the program today who have been with us before, and they've heard this story, but I think it's an important one to tell. I want you all to know that half of what we have done have been residential units. In the first story I told you about Bob Tate, it was income residential units. So it had a commercial element to it. But we do primary homes, okay? But we are mostly experienced commercial real estate people. And I'm going to tell you a story about a gift we took in West Suburban Chicago. I think I've leaked a few of the elements of it. It was near Naperville, Illinois, if any of you are familiar with that part of the world, on an intersection that at one point in time in America's past was the intersection in Shorewood, Illinois. And an owner an investor who lived in New York, bought a portfolio from a bank of distressed shopping centers, all of which were in New York, with the exception of this one in Shorewood, Illinois. About 2 years prior to our getting involved, this, by the way, was a food-anchored strip mall. It was anchored to I think a Jewel food store, which was owned by a different investor. We owned everything that was attached to that, all the small stores that are usually attached to a food-anchored shopping center. 2 years before, a food operator had built a brand new store 3 miles down the road, followed by Home Depot, followed by Staples, followed by Walmart. And, you know, it's the old thing, the center of gravity moved 3 miles away. So our intersection wasn't as favored as it used to be. Kind of a C type property, B minus maybe. It was also 70% vacant. It also needed $100,000 worth of work on it. And it also had a $515,000 mortgage. And so the deal we cut with the donor was we wrote him a check for $600,000, part of which was to pay off the mortgage, the rest of which was to put money in his pocket. He got an appraisal of $3 million on this shopping center because he had a letter of intent to occupy most all of the empty space. And on the basis of that, the appraiser said $3 million. Not too terribly surprising, 2 weeks after we closed on the donation and started dealing with the potential tenant whose broker had written the letter of intent, that tenant went away, just disappeared. I mean, it actually never returned our phone calls. So, you know, we had some unusual feelings about that, but we took it in stride. This property had been listed for a year by a real estate broker who, the day we took the property, we listed the property with again. Because he had been saying to his owner, if you would just list this property for $2.3 million, I can sell it in a heartbeat. So we listed the property with him. He knew the property, he knew everything about the property. We signed a listing agreement to sell the property. We signed a listing agreement separately to lease the property. We went into a leasing program. We put in actually $75,000 worth of repairs to the parking lot, the landscaping, the lighting, the storefront glass, the roof. We found a little mold. And our efforts were really to retain the one remaining tenant we had who was a national grade tenant. We did not want to lose, and he re-upped for 5 years after we invested that money. And then our broker, the team that was charged with finding a tenant, found us a tenant. We had a letter of intent for more than half of the space. We were about to finance the building out of the tenant improvements to get the tenant in place, and a buyer came along and said, stop. We will take it as is. The improvements you've made, the improvements we'll make for you for the new tenant. We'll take the new tenant. We'll negotiate the lease with the new tenant. We will even pay your broker the leasing commission. You pay the sales commission on our purchase of your property. We did. We were out of the property in 6 months. The donor had nobody in mind as to where to spend the money. So we made 18 gifts to 18 different nonprofits, 18 grants to 18 different nonprofits. And actually, one of the consultants that had been involved in the deal, who we paid some money to, she made 3 gifts to her own local nonprofits in Shorewood. So it's effectively 20 to 21 nonprofits got a grant out of that. So that's that story about the complexity of the stuff that we can get ourselves into, about the situation that we all find ourselves in when we buy real estate. Oh my God, that happened. The letter of intent went away. The snowstorm came 6 days before closing and tore the roof off of our building. That happened to us in a gift that we closed this past year. $65,000 worth of damage to a house we were almost ready to sell 6 days later. So these are the things, this is why nonprofits don't take gifts of real estate. And this is why I'm happy that I've had as much experience you know, and know guys like Dave Woodard in my market, because if I need to list a property and get some help, you know, I've got people with real experience. So, who else? Questions? Or Marilyn Foss. I see Marilyn's here. Hi, Marilyn.
Well, if there aren't any questions currently, we're going to go back to share the screen and jump into actually the last segment, which is about, okay, now that you know what this is and how it works, what do you do with it? What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? So I'll pull this up. Some of you might have received section 6 in an email. It has been tweaked, but let me just go and grab that. And if at any moment you come up with some question, feel free to just interrupt me and let us know, because we would much rather answer your questions and have you leave not knowing the answers to them. So I'm just going to get through what Bruce just went through. And by the way, can I get a round of applause? Some yays, some thumbs up for Bruce for just explaining how to truly leverage this. These numbers are just staggering, and the average person just would not understand it. So, all right, section 5 in your workbook are all the stories that he has been talking about. All the details, all the numbers. You can feel free to go back and look through it. As I mentioned at the beginning, I will send out the master copy of the workbook that has all the answers in the spots. But right now we're going to get on to section 6. Who to talk to, what to say, how to say it. And we keep talking about Dr. Russell James, and you know, he is not only analytical and understands the numbers and has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt why this is so massively huge for nonprofits, but he also has studied the psychology of how to instigate these conversations. And when he talks about story, shut up, what he's talking about is not confusing people, not trying to explain all the percentages. You know, everyone on this call is consummate, seasoned professionals. Even Ivan, who is not even old enough to drink, but is a beautiful representation of an old soul who has stepped into real estate and brings a lot to the table. Like, we all know that people buy on emotion and they justify with logic. Somebody walks into a house and they buy it because it reminds them of their grandmother, or because the smell of the cookies just make them feel at home, or you know, the colors, or maybe there's a song playing on a radio and it gets their endorphins going and they just feel really good. In other words, they buy that house on emotion, but then they justify it with logic. They tell their friends, oh, you know, it's only 15 minutes away from work, and the roof was already redone, so we don't have to worry about that. And there's plenty of extra bedrooms for when the kids start to get bigger. In other words, we buy on emotion and we justify with logic. I'm a great example of that with all the cars that I bought, including the one that I'm sitting in right now, my RV, Magic Mike. But way back when I bought my Mustang, the convertible 64.5 Mustang, I bought that car completely on emotion. Like, the grill of that car grinned when I pulled up and it just said, ooh, take me out. But then I justified it with logic. I told everyone at my office, you don't understand. I'm going to drive this in parades and I'm going to put it in car shows and I'm going to have CammieBaker.com all over it. It's going to build my business. And it did, but I bought it on emotion and I justify with logic. And I say all that because when we're talking about the story aspect, we want to share with them. And for those of you who are already in the course, the Charitable Real Estate Specialist course, which we are shifting to refer to as the Mastery membership, and we're shifting that because the course has a beginning and an ending, end of story. Memberships are the kinds of things that continue to grow and morph and change. And there's so many trainings in that we are adding, that it's more of a membership. And for those of you who are in it, you know that we talk about from the perspective of who is it we're talking to and what is it that they want? What is it that they need? In other words, if you're talking to a nonprofit founder, for example, as opposed to a property donor, as opposed to a property donor who's all about saving money on 1031, versus a property owner that is a veteran, loves veterans, is always doing stuff for veterans and wants to leave a legacy for veterans. Who you're talking to really is going to dictate what you're going to say. Everybody wants to know, what do I say? What do I do next? How do I talk to people? You guys, make sure that you mute yourself out, please. You want to make sure that whoever you're talking to, you think about it from their perspective.
Oh, look at that.
Teresa, you need to mute out. If anybody can send her message.
You know how that was? That Kansas City would never get into the end zone.
Yeah, that's a good
And
bet.
then
What's your bet, $1?
Danielle,
I
can you
bet
get a hold of her? I don't know how to mute her
$4
out.
on that, and I bet $4. The guy was like, not only will they get in the end zone, but it'll be a throwing
Sorry,
touchdown.
guys.
And I was like, the last play of the game, I was like, oh, well, there we go.
I think it's Thomas. Does Thomas want to mute?
Yeah, I just muted him. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Anywho, so when you're sharing a story, you want to share a story that you heard here. So for example, we heard lots of stories about case studies. You know, the one that so many people remember, the woman, hey, so you're talking to a nonprofit, you say, hey, listen, nonprofit friend, I heard this story about a nonprofit who had a donor that was given $25 a year for 30 years. And then she gave one big donation of $43,000 without a fundraiser. So we told a story and then we got quiet. We let them ask us. But we're going to get into a couple more slides. Bruce has actually given us some examples of things to actually say to start some of these conversations. So tell a story, listen for the cues from the donor, from, you know, if you're wanting to build a real estate team around the country from other realtors, et cetera. And you want to respond with some of these things. So the most frequent topics in a donor's mind, we'll just stick with donors for a moment. You know, some donors would love to avoid capital gains tax. Some want to qualify for a charitable deduction based on current appraised value. That's big for some people. We'll send over all of these bullet points for you. These are just some things to keep in mind when you're talking to a donor. Having said that, you don't really want to get into a whole bunch of techno babble and try to get their interest from talking about all the technical aspects of this. Once again, does this donor that you're talking to, do they have like a strong emotional attachment to your nonprofit, to the maybe you met them at church and you know that this church is really, really important to them. Maybe it's a donor that you met through the course of business and you know that they're doing 1031 tax exchange after tax exchange. That person's going to be much more analytical. So we can take one story that we heard, and we can shift it from the perspective of the nonprofit or the donor or another real estate agents. So these are some bullet points that we'll send over to you regarding the donor. We're going to do a little bit of role play in just a minute, just to get some of this really in our minds. Talking to a nonprofit, tell a story, listen to how they respond, as Bruce was mentioning earlier, asking them, do you accept gifts of real estate? How many gifts have you accepted? What was your experience? You know, a lot of them have heard bad stories. We want to make sure that we educate them and let them know that there are actually ways, like one of the bullet points, did you know gifts of real estate are safe and easy if you outsource it? Did you know that the average amount that comes from a gift of real estate is $550,000? These are all bullet points to remember for the nonprofit mindset. And then when talking to advisors. So some of us on this call are really wanting to build a team. We want to find realtors all over the country to join our team, or even just in our own marketplace. So these are some of the things to mention to them. Real estate gifts can be split among multiple recipients. So for me, when I'm doing some type of a cause marketing campaign with a real estate agent and a nonprofit, I let them know, look, we can pull in 2, 3, 5, 10 nonprofits to come together and simply educate and inform their marketplace. So what I'd like to do right now is just kind of open it up and have some interaction and some conversation. Everyone on here knows at least one person, if not 100 people, that would benefit from what we've just shared with you in one form or fashion. So what is that question that you have? What is that person that you'd like to talk to? Like, let's talk that through so that when we get off of this call, there's at least 3 people that you can reach out to immediately and help the nonprofit world and, frankly, your own pocketbook, because you get paid a really big commission to do this. Let's hear it. Everybody already knows what to say. You're just going to go out and bring 100 nonprofits into the awakening. Catherine, let's hear from you, my friend.
All right, I'm thinking about a gentleman. I'm thinking about a gentleman that raises money for the Mental Health Association locally. He's very financially savvy. He's even had a financial radio show. So I think he's one of the first people I might reach out to. And then I have several other nonprofits I could reach out to, but I do feel
Hold
like
on. Yeah, stay with him. So this is one person. He already does fundraising for a nonprofit.
yes, and he has huge, overwhelming number of donors. They were going to do a ball last year that they had to cancel for COVID, and he had so many donors he couldn't even take them all.
What's his first name?
Oh, Eric.
Eric. Hey, Eric, I just sat in on a class where I heard stories about nonprofits just like yours getting checks for over $100,000 with no fundraiser.
Yep.
Now, let's sit with that for a second, because I shared a story and I shut my mouth. As per Dr. Russell James says, because when we get quiet, we give them the opportunity to ask us a question. Let them lead the question. Let them show you that they have interest. In other words, even though I've only been a part of charitable gifting for about a year and a half, I've been a part of inviting people to meetings and handling objections and door knocking and phone calls and role play for 18 years, tens of thousands. And Dr. Russell James is so brilliant in talking about the psychology of this. When that person says to you, Catherine, what? Tell me more. Now, everything that you say, he has just invited into his world. And that's very different than you saying, oh my God, I just heard about this thing, right? And you can take donations, and it's okay because somebody else takes title and they'll pay off mortgages. And if the roof needs to get fixed up, I mean, I know you've never done real estate transactions before, and I don't want to overwhelm you, but it's okay. We've got a team. See, that's what so many people do. They kind of verbally vomit on people. It's overwhelming, and they didn't ask for that. So they can shut down and confuse people, do nothing. So when we share just a little bit of a story and give them some space to ask the question, then we can move forward. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah. Also, if you think about all of these nonprofits that had to cancel all of their fundraisers, this is such a prime opportunity for those of us that are interested in working on this.
We can't say it any better than that, Catherine. What you just said sums up this whole 4-hour segment together. When this has been around for 100 years, friends, we didn't invent it. The Realty Gift Fund was brilliant enough to give a bridge between the donor and the nonprofit. The bridge just has not been as accessible until I found it. And I said, hey, let's go out and let's certify real estate agents. Let's spread the word. And that's why there's 40 of you on now. And next month there'll be 100. And the next month there'll be 500, because that's how it works. Good news spreads fast. So there are so many nonprofits that maybe 3 years ago, maybe they wouldn't have been as open to looking at something new because they just had money flowing in, but they don't now. So every one of us, there was somebody on here who mentioned to me in a private message, he said, I'm an insurance person. He said, can I make money with this too? Or is this just for realtors? Friends, all of us can double our profitability because cause marketing. You can look the statistics up. 87% of consumers will choose the company, the service provider, or the product that is on point, that are socially responsible, that is on purpose, that are doing good things in the world. That's why the big companies, Coca-Cola has the teddy bear, Dawn Soap has the little ducky, you know, Starfish Tuna years and years ago put Dolphin Safe on their can. And the reason they did that, besides being good people and helping to save the dolphins, is because it was a good business decision. People were buying their tuna over the others. They were paying 10 cents more a can, and consumers were promoting the crap out of them. Hey, Mary, you better be buying StarKist. You know they're saving the dolphins, right? You better not buy that other brand. See, they'll do that for you, Catherine, and everybody else. Oh my God. You better list with Catherine. I know you can't just give your property away, but didn't you see on the news the other day? She handed a check for $358,000 to the homeless shelter. That's who you want to work with. So it's the same thing for any business that's on here. Let's get another question. Who else has someone that you're thinking about talking to? Raven, I see your head nodding over there. Who would you like to talk to about this? You are just stepping into real estate, right? Didn't you just get your license?
Yes, I did. There are a variety of people in my community that, as you were talking about, this is second home situation for a lot of our people out here. But I very much am in the community, and I'm already on these
fundraising
committees of helping. Yeah. And we have a great energy fair team here that I'm a part of, and I am really looking for assisting them, but really gapping this bridge for some of these people that have been here a long time and I know have homes, 3-4 homes outside of here. And so it's these people that I want to talk to.
Okay, if I may, are you open to some coaching around that?
Yeah.
Okay, we had a little bit of a bad connection, but
Absolutely.
I think I heard, yeah. So Raven lives in Crestone with Simone, and that is a beautiful community of 24 retreat centers. Like that little valley is full of retreat centers that have people come from all over the world. And to your point, they have second homes there. So we could potentially invite all of those retreat centers onto one Zoom and let them know what this is all about, so that you guys could have hundreds of millions of dollars pouring into Crestone. That's what I've been talking to Seema Simone about. So for you to be known as Crestone's first charitable gifting specialist, charitable real estate specialist, and to just reach out to those nonprofits and say, hey, I just sat in on a class where I heard stories about nonprofits just like yours, checks for 6 figures and more, no fundraisers. We need to talk. We need to get on a Zoom and chat about how we can bring this to our community. That's one thing. The other thing is all of those folks that have their second home there, you could reach out to them and let them know as well. Hey, I just heard a story. So when Russell James talks about the story, he talks about, and by the way, I posted a training that he did. It's in my feed and it's in the Real Agents of Change, and you can look it up on YouTube as well. But he talks about how when you put a person in the story, so for example, instead of I heard a story or I heard that you as a property owner can save on capital gains, That's one thing. The other story is I heard of this woman named Sarah who's just like you. She's a property owner. She didn't want to pay capital gains tax, so she found a way around that. I'm just giving you a canned difference in sharing a person. And because you guys have the workbook, you can look through and read those case studies. And all these stories that we're talking about sharing are the case studies. They're the things that are happening with our real agents of change. You guys just heard a story about the MS Society that just got a check for $152,000 3 weeks ago in Minnesota. I shared in the chat that there was a property in Rhode Island that was donated to the Martin Luther King Center. And when it was sold, they got $1.7 million from one donation. So to be able to just share a story from the perspective of the person you're talking to. So for example, Raven, just to take it in a different direction, if you were wanting to get other realtors in your community involved with you, like maybe realtors that are outside of your marketplace, but people you could send referrals to, you could say, hey, real estate agent friend of mine, Bob, I have just taken a class where I heard about nonprofits that are getting these big checks for over 6 figures. But what's really interesting is that the real estate agents that were giving them the checks were making a full commission to list and liquidate these property donations. It's fascinating. See, now we're talking to what the real estate agent would want to hear about the full commission aspect. So to be able to take the story and tailor it and kind of dance with who you're talking to. Does that make sense?
Right on. Right. Yes. And I very much agree with that, the philosophy of getting them hungry for the information and not bombard them with the details of why it's just too much. It's too much and that's not inviting.
Well, and we
So,
talk about
great.
in the
Thank you.
30-day, our 30-day challenge starts tomorrow. So for all of you who are new, you're not familiar with this. But starting tomorrow for the next 30 days, I do a 30-day challenge where every day we talk about something different, a different type of activity to reach out to people, to position yourself as an expert, to partner with people, to promote, etc. So if those nonprofits come together on a Zoom with us and they learn about this and how they can benefit, they are going to introduce you to people who own those second homes because you're the expert and you're the one that can help them have that second home owner donate it. So in other words, when you position yourself as the expert, now people want to partner with you. And when they're partnering with you, they're helping to promote you and move you forward in your business. So imagine if all those nonprofits in that area got behind you as their realtor of choice, and they start letting people know, hey, if you have a property in Crestone, Raven's the one to talk to. She's the expert. That's way better than sending out postcards or doing a Facebook ad. And you and I can do, if you so choose to become one of us and get certified, then we can do a interview. We'll do the interview and then you'll have that you can send as a press release. You can send it to the nonprofits. You can send it to any of these people that you're wanting to talk to, because in that interview, you're positioned as a person who knows way more about it than anybody else in your area, that's for sure.
I have a comment just real quick. I've been a real estate agent since 1988 and my husband joined me in 98. And we used to serve just everybody in the market. I opened up a couple of real estate brokerages and then sold them during the market crash. And we've just done different things. I was always concerned that announcing a niche or a niche would be limiting. And what I found is that it's so expanding, unbelievable. So I've thrown everything into doing this senior niche. I wanted to create my own highway of business, get completely away from other real estate agents in my market. And everywhere I go, I am the only realtor anywhere around. So I've really set myself apart, and that's exactly what anyone can do with this. And so I'm going to add this into what I'm already doing, but I think that this is amazing and found it through Facebook. It's amazing.
Well, and I've mentioned to you and Tamisa Lyden that you should talk to one another, because Tamisa's been a real estate agent for 18 years and she specializes in seniors. And she and I just did an interview 2 days ago where she said, of all the things I've ever done in 18 years with, I mean, she's been on the stages at Harvard, at Coca-Cola, at some big, she's been on the stage with, oh my God, she gave the name of somebody the other day. I can't remember. It wasn't Oprah, but it was a big name. Like, she's been doing that a lot. She said this in the last 45 to 60 days has opened more doors and created more intelligent conversations, and just people are introducing her left and right, because this is different. No one in your market's doing this yet, but they will be. So thank you for noticing. So guys, what we're doing right now is we're just kind of whetting your appetite for different ways to start talking to people. I'm going to let Bruce jump in just a second, but I know that at this point, this is the 5th class we've done. I know that your heads are just swimming, overflowing, gushing with all kinds of ideas. So what I'd like to suggest to you is to start making a list. We have a call sheet that I didn't show yet, but I can send you guys all the call sheet, which basically just gives you lines to start writing names. But just take a pen and paper and start thinking of the people that you want to reach out to. In the Real Agents of Change, this 30-day challenge that starts tomorrow, every day I'm talking about different ways to reach out to nonprofits, how the nonprofits can talk to their donors, how the real estate agents can reach out to their past clients, the vendors that they want to do business with, can send a press release, can get interviewed. Like, there's all these different fun ways to start positioning yourself. And when you have that list of people, we can start role playing and talking about how to talk to them. So just want you to know there is a ton of support here. There is a lot of trainings. You all, I'm going to speak for Bruce and then I'll let him say if this is what he wants to do. Wednesday, first, second, third Wednesday of the month, you have Q&A with Realty Gift Fund if you're a part of the certification class and or the membership. For those of you who are guests, we're going to give you tomorrow to come sit in, because tonight you're going to be thinking, oh, I wish I had asked that, or what about this? You're going to wake up at 2 a.m. with a question. We're going to give you access to that class tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. And after that, if you want to continue to do this with us, if you want to take the test and actually be able to refer to yourself as a certified charitable real estate specialist, you're going to have to make the $200 investment. And then if you want to do all the other fun stuff with us, I'll be doing on Thursday this week at 2 p.m. Eastern, I'll be doing a master class in the Real Agents of Change Facebook group. And I can also send any of you the recording that explains the difference between just the class that you just took and then being a part of the business development and doing what we're doing right now, talking about who to talk to and how to strategize, how to get in front of the right people. So Bruce, would you like to comment on that about your class tomorrow?
Yeah, office hours with Realty Gift Fund is something that has been kind of popular for a half a dozen people who have taken this class already. I see them, pretty much every Wednesday. We do it the first 3 Wednesdays of every month, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Cammie, you send out to all these people the link to the Realty Gift Fund Zoom room. Right now, we are in the Zoom room for Real Agents of Change. That's your Zoom room. So Realty Gift Fund office hours, it's a great way to talk about what to say, who to call, got to have a question, forgot to ask a question. What would you do in this circumstance? It's no holds barred. I mean, it's simply to make you more comfortable with the language around the charitable giving of real estate. This experience you just went through, which is about over, I think is a pretty intense class. I know that for those of you who have to take CE classes to maintain your real estate license, you might find it easy to take mold 5 times in a row, but this is a lot more interesting than that. But in the end, the charitable giving of real estate is actually fairly simple. If we can just get everybody involved talking about the same thing, each person doing everything what they do well. Nonprofits don't have to do a lot of heavy lifting, but they can't sit on their fannies. They have to be proactive. They have to ask. Really, the people who are on the phone or on this program right now, you know, you cannot sit on your fanny. You have to get involved and be proactive. That's why we offer that on your first donation, we're going to give you, in addition to your commission, $1,000 bonus. That technically is really just to reimburse you for the cost of this class and the cost of some business development with Cami, because together that gets the job done. And the job we're trying to get done is to create $1 billion pipeline additional to what exists for the nonprofit world. And when we get there, we'll move on from there to something bigger. So I make no bones about the fact that, you know, I'm using what real estate experience I have to benefit the nonprofit world. That's all I do right now. And I don't know everything about the real estate world. It's why I need some of the people who are in this program today. I need you as much as you need me, okay? And together we can get this thing done.
I kind of think of it this way. Simone, I'm going to let you in just a second. We just introduced you to the source of water. The source of water being the funding through Realty Gift Fund. There's the source. And we can either carry buckets of water that are on demand right now, or we can learn how to build a pipeline and just flow funding to our nonprofits and communities. So that's what we're doing with the Real Agents of Change. You guys are the pipeline that can bring these donations and these funds where they need to go. Simone, you had something?
Well, it brings to mind your interview with Miranda, who I work for here. She runs huge nonprofits and local nonprofits, both. And she's also a nurse, and she had a hospice nonprofit. And she said at the hospice, almost daily, they asked if they could donate their real estate because they were at the end of their life and they had nobody to give it to, and the hospice was not able to take that donation. So that's another channel to think about and be aware of. And of course, I'm interested because I work with a nonprofit, and I work with I want to have my own nonprofit. And I just wanted to share with you, Raven, that I talk about this a lot because we have all these nonprofits here in Crestone, and I'm working for one. I want to run one. And Cammie's talking about us having a big old Zoom with a bunch of people that have nonprofits here. And you know, people who've got second homes here, and you know, we're creating all, you know, the reweaving the social fabric cafe to network everything that's happening in Crestone together. So I think it's a great time for all of this.
And the more you sit in on the
Seema, I would like to, if you don't mind, I would like to make sure that we have a Zoom call with that hospice nonprofit. I mean, good Lord, there's a pipeline. The other thing I do want to say, and pardon me for interrupting, Cammie, but I have with everybody who's been involved in this class before, I have had private one-on-one Zoom conversations, and numerous of you have arranged conversations between me and your favorite nonprofit, your favorite financial advisor, your maybe an actual donor. The concept here is for you to spread the word, and I want you to know that I am available. You text me, email me, call me, and say, when are you available next week? I've just arranged a call with someone who is interested from XYZ nonprofit or donor or financial advisory firm. And it can be with one person, or it can be with 20 people. We're trying to educate. That's one of the 3 things that we do, is educate. So just let me know. The office hours are available every Wednesday, the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. And Bruce is available as to whatever my capacity is to speak about the program to people. And you will get more comfortable having those calls with those nonprofits, et cetera, by working with Cami, learning how to do it, learning what to say, what to do first, the emails, the text messages, the Facebook Live things. And then once everything bubbles up to the top and they want to know more, just want you to know I am available to help you in any way I can.
All of our real agents of change on here could pipe into the chat their experience with that. We've both been extremely reachable in all of this. So there's 3 ways to move forward. I see Virgil has a question for Realty Gift Fund about, does Realty Gift Fund need money to buy and fix up properties? I'm going to say no, that they don't need any backers, but I'm going to let Bruce answer that. But I just want to say real quick, for those of you who are ready to jump off, you got things to get on to, there's 3 ways to move forward. You can, assuming that you love what you're hearing. Number 1, you can just do it on your own. There's maybe 30 nonprofits out there that could potentially do their own out of the 1.3 million, and that's fine. And if you find a deal, you can certainly bring it to Bruce and just do it on your own. That's cool. But some of you are going to want at least the once a week Q&A with Bruce and the option to get certified and to be able to use that logo as a certified charitable real estate specialist. $200 investment to do that. For those of you who want more, you want to be a part of the 30-day challenge. You want to learn how to talk to people. You want to talk about strategy. You want to be involved in the group and all that we're doing. There's a membership moving forward in a couple of months. That's going to be a monthly fee. It's going to be $200-300 a month to do that moving forward. But right now, what we've done in the past, what we're currently honoring, is that $1,000 that Bruce talked about will buy your membership for the rest of your life, meaning you'll be able to come to all the classes you want to come to. You're part of all the training as the group. So for anyone who wants to honor that, the $1,000 is full-time lifetime membership. Even when it goes up, you're grandfathered in and you get that back as a bonus when you do your first deal. So basically it's free. And the only other way is there are custom things. Danielle and I are working with a handful of our people, custom creating social media, custom doing cause marketing campaigns. If a whole office wants to work together, if you want to do a recruiting thing and bring in 100 great agents into your office, et cetera, there's all these different ways to do custom stuff. And also, by the way, I completely forgot, Danielle has created a package for social media. It's a $500 value to get all your social media for 30 days, an email campaign for 30 days, which is another $200 value. That's free when you are a member at the $1,000 level for life. So just want to throw that out. Bruce, if you want to handle that question from our friend there.
Yeah, let me respond to 2 questions. Just real quickly, Valentina, I did speak with the owner of the solar farm, as I told you I would try to do. And it took a number of calls, and let's catch up on that later. I have meant to respond to you. And it's not going to happen on the property that you suspected might be a candidate, but it was worth a college try. And I did call him, and he did call me back.
And he did tell you he had another property that might be good. Guys,
Yeah,
this is why you got to get out there and talk to people. He's not going to do that property, but he has another one that he might.
Right. So, Valentina had a really good idea. She had been driving by this property that's been for sale for 2 years. We all know what that's like when you're a real estate broker. Why does this property have a for sale sign on it for 2 years? And so we agreed, we strategized. She provided me the information. I called the owner. I told him who we are, what we did. He was super grateful about the call and said he might have a different property, but the one that we were calling on was not a good property. So Valentina, we'll talk about that later. And then Virgil, your question, does Realty Gift Fund need more money to buy and fix up properties? I'm always interested in knowing what funding sources we can rely on to do the things we do. So I would never say, nah, we don't need that. That we've never run into a circumstance where we've not had the money to do a deal, but I am interested in talking to people and explaining, the kind of money that we need from time to time and what possible sources may exist for that. So Virgil, if you want to jump into office hours tomorrow, or if you want to call me directly, I'm assuming you've got my phone number, 505-660-8470, 505-660-8470. Any of you can call me with your questions. That was a very good question, Virgil. But, if we're going to do $1 billion a year, and if 30% of them are bargain sales, that's a lot of money that we've got to come up with, right? Very good question. Cammie, I'm going to have to check out here in a second. I've got another thing I've got to do. Is there any reason for anything else you want me to do hanging around here?
No, we're all getting ready to bring this to a close. I just want to thank you for your time as always and your expertise. The deal is, guys, Bruce has been doing these deals for years and years and years and has the numbers and the knowledge and the credibility to talk about what this is, how it works. And so he's your first point of contact with that. Second point of contact, when it's time to talk about what to do next, that's when I and Danielle get brought in to talk to the nonprofit or talk to the real estate company about how to position, partner, promote, like get the word out, because everybody's different. We don't have a canned response for that yet. We are going to be putting together some campaigns that people can maneuver for themselves, but we're really the next point. So on that note, Bruce, if you want to hop off, I'm just going to let everybody know that we are going to be putting together the notes from the chat. We're going to put together a list of everyone's phone number and email address and website. And if you don't have it in yet, please put it in now, because I'm going to send my assistant the chat. And if you're not in there, you won't be on the list. We'll assume you don't want to be contacted. So
Please know that I appreciate everyone who is involved this morning in this program. Those of you first timers, those of you as guests, those of you who have been here numerous times, you just have no way of knowing how much I appreciate your being here. Together, we can get this train on the road, okay? So with that, I'm going to sign off.
you go right ahead.
And I'll see you guys soon.
Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern. Exactly. Thank you all.
As a matter of fact, if you want to put your Zoom link in the, can you do that? Put it in the chat, and that way everybody gets that one shot at coming to the Q&A unless they decide.
I can do that. That's a hell of a good idea.
Yeah. So I'm going to hang on for another 20, 30 minutes just for anyone who wants to run some ideas past me, wants to talk strategy, wants to talk about how do you recruit agents, or how do you, get in front of somebody. I want to really suggest that you talk to your warm market. So many people want to start reaching out to 1,000 nonprofits, and you can do that. But why do cold calling when there's so many people that you know and love that need this, that would benefit from this? Everyone on here sits on a board and helps with fundraisers and volunteers and gives a percentage of their check at closing, et cetera, et cetera. Start with those people. Chris, we haven't had much time together, my friend. I'd love for you to pipe in and tell me what I can do to support you.
I'm just like Dominic was on the phone today, or on the Zoom call today, as you know, and I'm just putting it out to my COIs like Dominic. I run in a lot of estate planning circles. Cami knows this, and I'm on the board of a couple of estate planning councils here in Palm Beach County. So I've been working with a lot of the wealth managers and their big donors and their charitable organizations. So that's how I've been putting it out to my circles. We're getting some traction. So I haven't done my first deal yet, but I'm only 30 plus days into this. So it's coming, that's for sure.
Do you have a planned giving roundtable there?
We have a planned giving council, and Russell James actually spoke to it last month. I was a part of that, and I will probably be joining that in the next month and maybe sponsoring the following month. And to the group, one of the things that I do here in Palm Beach is I'm a sponsor of a lot of the estate planning events, and that money's been gold for me. I mean, just usually it's $1,000 or $2,000 a year, and I do the local bar association here in Palm Beach County, and I get 2 or 3 deals a year, and those are 5-figure checks. So you can do the math on the ROIs on that, but I find that to be very effective, at least in my market, that's for sure. And Catherine, like you said, there are no realtors that go to those. I am the only one.
Well, Chris, I'm gonna share with you how you can make 6 figures from that group.
What makes you think I don't already do?
I'm talking about in one whack. Get all those people together. Get them all together and let them know. Instead of sponsoring just their event, which is awesome, and I totally applaud that, and everybody can do that. You be the event.
That's coming. Yeah, that's coming. Dominic and I have been talking about that because he's very charitably inclined, and he's the president of a local nonprofit. So he and I have been chatting about how we put that out. Obviously, part of the reason I wanted him to be on the call today.
Yeah.
So thank you for allowing me to do that. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And, I've been brought in to speak at different real estate office meetings with all the realtors. We had just a phenomenal call last Friday with the planned giving roundtable people from Arizona. I've already done some interviews with them because they get what we're doing. They're like, they're like, we've been trying to get our nonprofits to change their rules so that they can accept real estate. We've been trying to get our donors to do this as part of their estate planning, but we can't find nonprofits that will accept the real estate. It's like, those people just, we don't have to explain it. They don't think it's a scam. Like, they get it. They just needed the vehicle that we have. And so, Catherine, when we get on your TV show, just really showing those people there is another option out there. So for any of you who have a lot of nonprofits, let's just invite them all. Oh, so last night I did a Zoom. So Ren Nix, I don't know if Ren's still on. Ren, why don't you pop on, turn your camera on and share with these folks how when you put out the 100 days, 100 heroes, how your mayor even signed up to come on the Zoom. Talk about that a little bit.
You guys, this is the most exciting thing ever. I'm not a professional. I'm a real estate advisor. I'm not a professional speaker. My Facebook feed isn't spot on. I have like 3 Instagram posts ever, whatever. I don't know the mayor. Well, I do now. I didn't know the mayor, okay? But I had this big idea to spread the word how we could fund our nonprofits, energize and connect community, and celebrate heroes here, right? So I put that out. Shout out to DC Copy who helped me with all of that. Do not think I would have gotten the attention I got without Danielle and Cami's coaching. Anyway, I put that sucker out there. I took imperfect action and I just put it out there. Oh my gosh, the response was overwhelming. And the mayor, you guys, the mayor came to my call. So anyway, it's a connection. I cannot wait. I'm on a personal mission to get a building for our local food bank. And it's going to happen. I can feel it. So do it. Take the risk and do it with
Well,
support.
here's the beauty. All those people that were on your Zoom, you had as many people on your Zoom last night as we had on here today.
Yeah.
And all of those people now know you, their volunteers, their staff, you know, I mean, all those people, you can be their realtor now because they know you. And 87% of people want to do business with those that are on purpose. And when you're the community leader and you're holding and hosting these, so what she's going to do now, starting Valentine's Day, every day for 100 days, she's going to do a Facebook Live interviewing who she considers heroes in that area. And it's not about promoting charitable real estate. It's about getting out there and just celebrating people and meeting and being introduced to all these people, because ultimately with every interview she does, she can start it out by saying, hey guys, as Idaho's very first charitable real estate specialist, I knew that I wanted to use this knowledge to help our nonprofits. And so I want to celebrate our heroes, blah, 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 and do her interviews. In other words, she's going to be known as the charitable real estate specialist, and people are already asking her, what does that mean? How does it work? How can my nonprofit get involved? Guys, that's way more efficient than just trying to cold call a nonprofit.
My phone is ringing off the hook. I'm being buried in messages from people who are either on the board of a nonprofit or, hey, I've never mentioned this to you, but my sister is the president of the board for the biggest nonprofit in the area, or my cousin so-and-so is the secretary for whatever. I'd love to introduce you to. I don't understand exactly what you're doing or how, but I just want to introduce you to. You can't buy that. It's just this stuff is what people want. There's nothing to sell. That's the beauty of it. You're literally just living your best life, helping people, and it just happens naturally.
Yeah, thank you for that. Alex, you have something to add? You're muted, my friend. You're muted.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
I've just been thinking about this and for the last couple of minutes here, and you said, you know, it's kind of open for just discussion. So is that all right if I just kind of throw an idea out there and see what you say?
Everything. Yep.
All right. So wholesaling, I don't do it, but I've come across a lot of deals in the wholesale world, and there always seem to be a good deal for a person that's going to buy. But on the flip side, the sellers normally aren't high net worth individuals. Sometimes they are. And they're just trying to, most of the time, they're selling under market and they're just trying to get out of the deal. So one, I mean, does it make any sense in that case scenario for those people? And there's probably a benefit for them. And then, you know, there's got to be an easier way to explain it to them versus, you know, drop your net worth down or your taxable income down and all these things, because they're just not thinking that way, at least from people that I see that, you know, are wholesaling $70,000 or $80,000 properties.
I'm going to take that in two different directions. On one hand, we want to remember that, first of all, they need to have owned a property for at least a year. Second of all, it is the equity that is being donated to the nonprofit. So there's got to be plenty of meat on the bone for that to happen. Yeah. But what I want to do is spin it in a different direction for you, because I don't know you and I don't know what city you're in, but what I'm getting ready to say is true for everyone. There's a ton of people who do what you do. It's very competitive. And if you were to go to a RIA group, Real Estate Investor Association, physically or just on Zoom, and there's 100 people there, there's at least 10 wholesalers, there's at least 10 or 15 real estate agents, et cetera, et cetera. What can you do to stand out in that group? How can you be the one that everyone at the RIA group knows and wants to do business with? How can you be different when you are reaching out to those property owners that may be a wholesale potential prospect? See, when you have the credential, and not just the credential, but the strategy and the language around, hey, you know, as a charitable real estate specialist, I love helping the veterans and the animal groups, et cetera. And I just want to let you know that I see that your property is for sale. And I just want you to know that when we work together, I can advise you on how maybe you can make part of this property a donation to the veteran group. In other words, they probably aren't going to donate. Like if it's a wholesale deal, there's probably so many other things going on that there's not enough meat on the bone. I don't know, but it gets your foot in the door. It makes you different. And when there's 3 other wholesalers that are trying to get that deal, who do you think they're going to want to do business with when you started out that way, as opposed to the guy that looks shady and is just going to take advantage of them? They're going to want to work with the guy that's helping the veterans and the animals. And
Well-
when you go into these different groups, what a great way to have on the screen, that you're a charitable real estate specialist, way better than everybody else just talking about wholesaling.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, I don't do wholesaling. I've just come across people that are, and the deals are always good, and there's always enough equity on them. Otherwise, the people that do wholesale, because I've spoken to a bunch of them, they take a significant portion of, and I just don't even understand how or why a seller would go that route. But it's just because their situation, it has to be.
Are you're a
but it
real estate
does-
agent?
Huh?
Are you a real estate
I'm sorry?
agent?
Yeah. But it just from what I know in that world, it seems like, they're not high net worth individuals for the most part. There's enough equity on it. I don't understand why they don't just go the normal route, but it's because of their situation. And, is this in angle? And then, how is the easiest way to describe it to them? Because, it's probably a better way for them to go long term.
Well, like you said, every situation is so different. Why aren't they selling it traditional? Why aren't they getting retail for it? Personally, I've been in real estate for 20 years, and I've often thought that too. Why would somebody do it? Some people are desperate. They don't want the whole neighborhood to know they're selling. They just want to get out of it and get away from it. One of the benefits of what we're doing here, Alex, is that Realty Gift Fund, when they look at that property, they can make a decision in a week or 2. They can pay them the cash that they need. They can pay off the mortgage. They can take title to it. And that person is out now. They're not putting it
Right.
on the market and doing showings and going through home inspections and the 60, 90-day process. They're out right now. So for some
Right.
people, that in itself is enough of an incentive. But let me ask you this, Alex, who is an ideal client for you? Not nonprofit that you want to work with. Who do you want to do business with as a real estate agent?
Production builders.
Say that again.
Production builders.
What does that mean?
Land acquisition, like someone that builds 100 houses a year, land acquisition, and then selling those houses.
Got it. How do you normally connect with those folks?
Work for them. So, yeah.
So charitable gifting of real estate is a way to really build that center of influence and all those people who are doing that, because people like that, that's a niche all in of its own, people that have that kind of land and money and backing and all that. If you wanted to go into LinkedIn, for example, and find a dozen people that would fit the criteria of who you want to work for and work with, you can actually reach out to them. Hey, Mike Smith, I see that you're a veteran and that you support veterans. Just want you to know, as Tallahassee's only charitable real estate specialist, I love to advise people like you on how the Boys and Girls Club or the Veterans Group or whoever they support, how some of this real estate can actually fund them. As a matter of fact, there's story after story about people just like you who are avoiding capital gains tax by donating to the clubs that they love. In other words, just sharing stories with them. Because at the end of the day, if it opens the door and it gets you on the phone, I mean, for God's sake, I'm talking to the owners of EXP. I'm talking to managers of Remax. I'm getting interviewed by people that I've just been wanting to meet for years, because this is an interesting conversation. It's intriguing. None of them have ever heard of it. About 3 months ago, I Googled women in real estate and successful. The most successful woman in real estate, according to Forbes magazine and me doing this Google search, is a woman named Dottie Herman. Dottie Herman's in her 60s. She's in New York City. She owns brokerages, multi-hundred millions of dollars. She has a radio show I saw when I Googled her on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So I called her show, because it was actually a live show, And I told him what I wanted to talk about, charitable real estate. And of course, she sits on all kinds of boards and she does all kinds of stuff for homeless shelters and domestic abuse and all these places. And even the most successful woman in real estate does not have a clue what we're talking about. Not a clue. So what a great way for me to have started that relationship by reaching out to her in that way and stroking her ego a little bit. And I told her, I said, hey, I Googled the most successful women in real estate. You'll be happy to know that according to the internet and Forbes magazine, that would be you, you know? But then when I talked about charitable real estate, like, here's this little crazy blonde woman calling her out of nowhere, telling her something she didn't know about real estate. She was like, oh my God, leave your phone number. We'll interview you for a whole episode. So these are ways that any and all of us can get in front of the right people and double our profitability just around this conversation.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for playing.
It's fun.
It is. And you know what's so fun about it, Alex? Here's the deal. These nonprofits cannot get a big check unless you get a full commission check to make that check happen. And you can't get a full commission check unless the proceeds from that property are going to a nonprofit. And the people who are donating the properties were not convinced, were not sold, were not manipulated. We didn't handle objections. We educated and informed. We became an advisor, the only one in our marketplace. That will change over the next 6 months, 2 years. There's going to be more people that start doing this, just like anything else. Short sales were brand new, and now everybody knows what they are. But right now, it's brand new to all of us on this call. And anyone you talk to, it's brand new to as well. And it's just win, win, win. Okay, who else? Who else has something? Input. Virgil, you've been very, very engaging with us. I would love to have a chat with you if you'd like to unmute yourself. I'd love to hear what your insights are, what you're learning, what you love. We can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you. I see you back there taking notes on your big whiteboard. I'm wondering what your whiteboard's got on it. I can't see it.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I need to put on my headset. Wow, what a great event. Just got so many things going through my head, and I started writing on my whiteboard behind me of people I know and that sort of thing. I've been a realtor since 1990, and I love real estate, but at the same time, it's a self-employed business. And I just started a nonprofit, and it's helping vets out with PTSD and teaching financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and serving others. And this is just going to fit right into the funding of it. So just amazed. Right
Virgil,
place, right time.
I love what you're doing, and I would love to have a conversation with you offline, because when I've worked with people, with veterans in the past, even before I knew about charitable real estate, I helped real estate agents put together a cause marketing campaign where they're bringing together the veteran-owned businesses, the veteran services, the veterans themselves. Now, in the past, we would actually have a big physical gathering where we had, 50 veteran-owned businesses and places that service veterans, et cetera, and have a big thing like in a college auditorium or something. But the beauty of this is we don't have to spend 3 to 6 months doing all that planning and, renting booth space and getting someone to cater it and all that garbage. Like, now you could simply put together a really simple way for all the people in your marketplace who want to support veterans. Because see, those veteran-owned businesses and the businesses that support veterans, including the car dealerships, the insurance, the doctors, like any and all kinds of businesses, when they come together to do a cause marketing campaign, around simply letting people know that your nonprofit and these 10 other veteran nonprofits can all benefit from charitable gifts of real estate. When we let them all know, you know what? We're not asking for your money. We don't want you to go to a GoFundMe account. We're not selling you a raffle ticket. We're not begging for you to buy a cookie at our bake sale. We just want you, right?
Or a pie.
Or pie. I know a realtor in New Hampshire. Every year she does her dessert auction. People bring their pies and their plates of cookies, and people buy that plate of cookies for $50 to give to the veterans, and that's very sweet. And I get it. I've been doing it for 30 years as well, but we don't have to do that anymore. And the good news for the veterans is now, instead of spending 3 to 6 months planning all that, we can do a campaign and in one day, just have everybody involved share.
Yep.
Do some video and share, like what Ren's doing. Those 100 days and 100 heroes, you could do something much shorter, 10 days. And every day you interview one of these businesses, one of the nonprofits, one of the veterans that you've served, et cetera, and just have all of them share each other's video. Do you know how many thousands of views that you'd get? And when they share, the beautiful thing about it is they're not sharing a link to buy a raffle ticket. They're not sharing, go to my GoFundMe account. All they're sharing is you doing a beautiful interview with these 10 different people. And during that interview, you talk about charitable real estate and how stories you've heard all over the country where nonprofits are getting checks for well over 6 figures. As a matter of fact, the average donation is $550,000 without a fundraiser. And all we want you to do is click share. Guarantee you people will donate property. What a much better way to do your nonprofit.
Now, how can I do this for my own nonprofit that's not self-serving?
Good for you. So when I would do the cause marketing campaigns, I would always, so I'll give you an example and then you and I can talk offline. I just want everybody to benefit from this. I had a guy that I was working with who did, he's an IT guy, 30 years helping people with computers, fixing computers, and he loved kids. And one of the things he did was he helped kids build a computer. But it was about $400 to buy all the pieces and parts to a computer. He'd spend all day helping the kids build these computers. So at the beginning, he thought that our cause marketing campaign was going to be around him getting businesses to donate money so that he could help these kids build these computers. But to your point, that's very self-serving. Hey, fellow businessman, give me some money so I can go help these kids build computers. Icky, weird, salesy, didn't want to do that. So what we did instead was we created we called it Finding the Sharks. It was a Shark Tank event for kids. And so what we were looking for was finding the baby sharks. Who do you know that are those kids that are entrepreneurial? And, they're having the lemonade stand and they're creating their own little businesses. We did this fun competition kind of thing where we were out looking for these kids. Hey, who do you know that's a kid that's really entrepreneurial? With that, we were able to ask businesses, let them know that we were donating the money to some kind of kids organization. So the money went to a kids organization. The kids came in and competed on finding the sharks. But at the end of the day, what it was it gave him a reason to go talk to hundreds of businesses who needed his services. He got to talk to lots of PTAs and school boards, letting them know we were looking for these kids. And at the end of the day, those were the people who had parents who wanted their kids to build a computer. So my point is, instead of making it self-serving, it was completely something not self-serving to him, but he was meeting thousands of people that he could do business with, both building computers for the kids and his own business, et cetera, et cetera. So it's about thinking out of the box and strategizing. Who is it you want to do business with? How is it you want to grow your nonprofit? And how can we create that campaign so that you don't look weird and self-serving,
Right?
but so that you meet thousands of people. That's
Or in that orange suit.
teal.
I also just let you know, I think you got, I'm going to join the master's group, but it's just, there is another company that I saw 3 years ago was basically doing something very similar, but they were charging $25,000.
I think I know who you're talking about, and I think they keep 30% of the proceeds. And I think that they teach charitable gifting and how to fund your nonprofit with charitable gifting, but they don't teach you how to get out and meet thousands of people. That's the difference.
Yeah, I've been there. So you're on to something great.
Well, look, did you put your phone number in the chat?
I did.
Okay.
I'll do it again.
Awesome. Well, I want to respect everybody's time. I appreciate everybody that's hanging on. If you've got an urgent, like, damn, I need to ask you this question, pipe on right now. If not, I'm going to let everybody go because I know that our heads are just flat out full. I'm going to scroll down. I see some messages. I see lots of comments. Hi, Destiny. I see you.
Hi.
Hi, how can I help you?
I just have a quick question. Like the gentleman that was just talking, I actually had to let it go because of family stuff, but I had a nonprofit and that we would help foster kids because I used to be a foster mom as well. So we would help foster kids, we would help the homeless, like feed the homeless and things of that nature. I just wanted more information on how I could, like, you know, entwine what we're learning with you guys to my nonprofit as well.
What's your business?
I'm a real estate agent.
Okay. So you're a real estate, how much experience do you have in real estate?
I've been doing real estate for 4 years, but actually agent license, because we did like fix and flips and things like that. I just got licensed in December.
Gotcha. So what marketplace are you in? What city?
I'm in Southwest Florida. I'm in like Fort Myers area.
Right. Are you with Jessica Peterson?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I thought she was the one that introduced you. So, Destiny, there are so many ways to leverage this around meeting lots of people. So bear with me and play with me for a moment. Who do you want to do business with?
Like the rich, because I know they give more. Their hearts are not necessarily bigger, but they're more generous.
Well, they give more because they have more money, but like in real estate, are you wanting to be a listing agent, a buying agent? Do you want to work with investors?
As of right now, I do both. I've done I have a couple of investors that I'm working with. I have a couple of buyers that by the end of this month, we closed like 2 deals with some buyers. I am trying to get a couple of listings. I'm trying to aim for some listings to see how that portion of the business works. So I'm trying to fill it out and see how, you know, all of it as an agent works.
Well, as they say, listers last. And when I was in real estate, thank God, I was hired by someone who was coached by the Mike Ferry organization, and he did 125 deals a year, and I was his listing coordinator in the beginning. But I watched him and I learned how to make the prospecting phone calls, and thank God I learned how to be a listing agent and didn't have to deal with all the buyers from the very beginning. So highly recommend that. But the campaign that we're doing together, Ren, Nix, and I, and this types of campaigns that I was doing long before Charitable Real Estate, I want to throw this at you because you're wanting to benefit a nonprofit that helps kids. And one of the, I'll just give you an idea of someone that you might want to make your primary avatar, your primary client. What if your clients were those people who are in their late 20s, early 30s, they've got kids, they got 2, 3, 4 kids between 2 and 12 years old, they own a house, but now the house is too small, they need to get a bigger house. So they're a seller and a buyer. Sound nice?
Yeah, definitely.
That's at least 2 sides, if not 4, because you could get both sides of both deals, right?
Right.
So these people love love kids. They already have kids. They're part of the kids community. They go to the pediatrician. They go to the orthodontist. They go to the karate dojo. They go to the dance studio. Do you follow me?
Right, right.
What if you did a campaign? What if you did a 30-day campaign where if every day for 30 days, you interviewed and celebrated businesses in your community that support kids, nonprofits that support kids, even the car dealership and the insurance guy that was on here a little bit ago and said, how can I make money with this?
Right.
Insurance people can get involved in this. What if you were actually doing these interviews with them and you said to all 30 of these people, hey, we're going to do these interviews. All you have to do is share each other's video. The dojo, the karate guy, has 500 sets of parents. The dance studio has 500 sets of parents. The orthodontist has 2,000 kids that come there, et cetera, et cetera. This is what I'm talking about. Oop, I lost her.
Yeah,
There you
no,
are.
coming in. I had to exit. Sorry.
No worries. But my point with all this, and I know I go way off of the topic of charitable real estate, but the reason that I do is don't get such blinders on that you're just looking for somebody that'll make a donation. Who will make a donation? Where can I get a donation? It's like, wow, okay, as a human being, as a real estate agent, I need to know thousands of people. If I'm going to run a nonprofit, I need to know tens of thousands of people. I need to do bit. So what if you were doing this kind of campaign and all of these 30 nonprofits, business owners, leaders, kids who benefited from your nonprofit, et cetera? What if all of them shared these videos? Who would be in that video that everybody would see every time?
Me.
You'd have thousands and tens of thousands of people within 30 days. And what if you started every video by saying, hi, my name is Destiny. And here in South Florida, I'm so honored to be a charitable real estate specialist. And as a real estate agent and the founder of XYZ Nonprofit, it really pulls together my two passions, real estate and nonprofit, in our case, kids. So for the next 30 days, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to all the businesses who support kids and love kids and their families, blah, blah, blah. The point is, this is a way to get you seen by tens of thousands, get you listings, because in all of that, there's going to be people who want to hire you.
Right.
You're promoting your nonprofit. Like, in other words, instead of just cramming, we're looking for a donation down people's throat, if we just let people get to know us, that's how we build our resources and relationships.
Right. That's awesome.
So let's talk offline about what that looks like. First thing you need to do is be a certified charitable real estate specialist. So now that you've taken the class, before April 1st, we're going to have that quiz, that test put together. It'll be simple enough. It's all the information you've learned here. But when you pass the test and you've paid the $200 fee, and now you can come to all these Q&As with Realty Gift Fund, but back to being a part of the group, doing the 30-day challenge that starts tomorrow. As a matter of fact, Virgil, you and I, and Destiny, you and I should have a conversation today to see about getting you guys into the Mastery membership so you can start doing the 30-day challenge. All these things that we're talking about is part of that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, definitely.
All right, so I am going to send you, Destiny, I've got your information on Facebook. Virgil, I'm just going to write yours down. I'll send you an email. Virgil Neal #1 at Gmail. I'll message both of you and set something up for in just a little bit, and we'll just talk about what that looks like so you guys can be in before we get started tomorrow.
I got another webinar at 1, but then I'm available.
Well, I tell you what, why don't we, so you say 1 o'clock, I don't know what time it is your time, it's 20 minutes before here, so.
Oh, it's Pacific.
Okay.
So
How
20
about if we do 6 p.m. my time, 3 p.m. yours?
Sounds good.
What's your phone number? I'll just call you.
916-847-1783.
1783. And Destiny,
Yes, ma'am.
could you do 7? Well, let me check my schedule. Could you do 7 p.m. tonight?
Yes, ma'am. That actually works great because I'm about to start getting the kids situated.
Sure. What's your phone number, sweetie?
239-703-0176.
Awesome. I'm going to be in Florida in a couple of weeks, so I look forward to meeting you while I'm down there visiting with Jessica as well.
Yeah,
Social
definitely.
distance, of course.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. That would be cool.
Okay, guys, I'm going to pop off now. I am real, raw, relatable, and reachable. 603-785-2598 is my number. 603, here, let me pop it in. 603-785-2598. It's right there in the chat. Cami@camibaker.com. Real easy. If you are not a member of the Real Agents of Change on Facebook, please join it today. It's a free group where we go in all week and just delivering a lot of content. And once you become part of the certification class, then you'll be in the private group, which is where I do the 30-day challenge, and we can talk about that more later. Catherine, you and I have a lot of talking to do too. Perhaps we can touch base tomorrow. And anyone else, you guys, I'm right here. I'm easy to get a hold of. I'm traveling in my RV and can't wait to come to your area and do some promoting together. Like I'm so old school. I like to get together face to face. Like I like to sit with you at Panera's. Yeah, Virgil, I would love to help you bring together 20 nonprofits in your area and all come together. And frankly, we can do that. I can pull my RV up. This is my vision, to pull my RV up and at the YMCA, at your real estate office, at fucking Walmart, like pull it someplace where we can have a nice outside gathering. Everybody can be 6 feet apart. They can bring their lawn chair just like at a football game. And we can just come together and have a good old fashioned hoedown. What's this all about? How does it work? If you're wanting to recruit agents, let's invite a whole bunch of agents. If you're wanting to talk to nonprofits, let's bring them. If you are a nonprofit and you want to talk to your board and your donors, let's do that. I mean, we can do it on Zoom. Of course, I can do that with any of you. But I really want to get together physically because that's where the magic happens. That's when our energies are really entwined and we come up with really great stuff. So just know that whether it's physical or whether it's virtually, my mission this year is to have 500 people come through this class, be certified, and be doing at least one deal this year each. Because if we had one deal per 500 people, at an average of $550,000, do the math. Like, I don't know how much that is, but it's a lot of fucking money to the nonprofits. And the nonprofits don't get it unless you get paid a full commission to do it. So that's it. We will send over the list of all the participants. I'll have my assistant get on it. I don't know if it'll take her till tomorrow or 3 days. I don't know, but you guys will all get it. Bless you for being the real agents of change. Bye-bye.